Oh, I didn't notice. Okay. I was so busy reading, I didn't notice. Okay, I didn't notice the time. What? He knows it's at 6. He knows.
Everybody make sure you sign on the sign-in sheet, please.
Crystal, is Darcy gonna be here? Okay. 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 Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and call our work meeting to order. And we were asked earlier, or Paul was asked earlier by someone if we were going to allow public comment during the work meeting. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, whether to allow it or not, because generally in the work meeting you don't, but I always allow it in the regular meeting. But I think this particular time, because some of these things are going to end up on our agenda maybe next month, that I, for example, see the street lighting, that's coming up in this meeting. So I won't take, I think I'm not going to let public comment during the work meeting, and you guys will be able to make all the comments you want during the regular meeting, since I always allow that anyway. So I am going to, I really wanted Heath to be here. He should be here any minute. I really wanted him here when we discuss item A. So what I think I want to do is go ahead and move to item B while I wait for A to for Heath to show up. Okay? Okay. So, are you ready, Paul? Okay. So item B is the discussion whether to support Washington County in their quest to pave Sheep Bridge Road. So as I said last month, I think it was last month, that I was at a meeting and about some extra funding. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to try to limit each topic to about 15 minutes, since I've got 4 topics and only 1 hour for it. So each one gets 15 minutes. So on Sheep Bridge Road, as I said last month, I'd been at a presentation on grant funding at Congressman Stewart's office, and they talked about this community funding project where they had several $1 million available. And Washington County is asking, they're going to be submitting a grant request for money to pave Sheep Bridge Road and also to pave that road that goes from Smithsonian Butte and goes down by into Rockville. They want funding to pave both of those. And so they're asking Rockville for a letter of support to pave that road, and they're asking Virgin for a letter of support for paving Sheep Bridge Road. And I had said that I would not do a letter of support until I got feedback from people in town and from the town council. So what I have here is this package that, and I can make copies for anybody who would like to have a copy eventually. I mean, I can make a copy after this, but this is their package, their grant request that they have prepared to go to the federal government asking for the funding. And what they talk about with regard to Sheep Bridge Road is that it would provide two main benefits. And they talk about recreation and tourism, and then they talk about congestion. And so I myself am torn about paving Sheep Ridge Road. I see, on the one hand, I'll see, dust gets mitigated, but then on the other hand, you got a lot more traffic. And you're going to have lights in people's windows at night. I can see the benefit to emergency and law enforcement services if they can cross over 59 to 9 instead of having to go down the hill and around and then back up the hill. I can certainly see that. But on the other hand, I see what will happen to the businesses in Hurricane and Laverkin that depend on all that traffic that comes that way, and that would stop. And so I see a good and I see a bad, and I see it a good and a bad on everything. So I myself am torn on what I think about paving Sheep Ridge Road. So I'm asking the other town council members, what do you guys think on this topic of paving Sheep Ridge Road? And should we do a letter of support? But we can't vote on that because that would have to go next month on the actual agenda as a voting item, if whatever we decide, whatever we think we want to do. Any of you have anything to say about paving Sheep Ridge Road? Any opinions? Paul?
Well, my initial thoughts are, of course, I want to hear from all the citizens, and especially the citizens directly affected by traffic on Sheep Ridge Road, which would be Desert Gardens, and then the housing to the east of it. And of course, all citizens are affected because of how that's going to affect SR9. One of the things that I know is part of the cost is going to be a little more than just paving, because I think there's some right of way that we still have to acquire if we're going to pave it, if I'm not mistaken. And that needs to be looked into. And then I'm wondering if we're paving a portion of that, that kind of lets the developer off, because right now Labrie is supposed to pay for his half of that entrance coming into Sheep Ridge Road. But I don't want to let that other guy off that's going to develop on that other side and then rely on the city to pick it up. So I'm wondering if we can do some type of payback. I know other jurisdictions where the town ends up paying for it. If a developer comes in within the next 20 years, there's a calculation that then he will pay back the funds that used to pave Sheep Ridge Road. So if the decision is to pave it, then we'd want to look at a possibility of a payback from the developer when he comes in. The other thing is I'm very concerned about the traffic coming on SR9. So I'd be interested in maybe tying it with a roundabout on SR9 and even maybe a roundabout on 1420 West as traffic calming issues. So those are things that we need to consider at the next meeting after we hear from the citizens.
Okay, that reminds me that one of the things Rockville told me is that they are asking if, in return for a letter of support, they want a different bridge to be built in Rockville. They're saying that historic bridge is a one-way bridge. It can't handle any increased traffic that would happen by paving that road. And so they're basically saying, we'll give you a letter of support if you build us another bridge. And so I was going, well, is there something we could ask for? And I haven't come up with anything. Paul's suggestion of a roundabout there is a possibility. I hadn't thought of that, but that could be something. But just to say, sure, do this road that might have this negative impact on the town, well, probably will. It'll have some good and it'll have some bad. And I thought Rockville's idea of asking for a tit for tat might be something we could pursue. So any ideas from Eugene?
I think we have to look beyond just those that are affected in our town. I think this road alleviates a lot of pain for the town of Hurricane, Laverton, Apple Valley. There's workers that work at the park that commute through there. So I think it's more than just whether we're going to have lights in our windows. But as far as what Paul was saying, I think there's some validity in that the current developer, when we originally spoke with Labrie, it was, if the county chooses to pave this, then you'll work with the county to pay a portion of that.
Mhm.
But I don't know if we can put money in escrow for other developers that come along. I don't even know if that's ethical, honestly.
Yeah, and that's what they do in other jurisdictions, but I don't know if we can do it here in Utah. It's something we'd have to explore with Heath on doing that.
I guess my question would be is for somebody like Palmer that owns the entire east side of that, not the piece right across from Labrie, but the rest of that road down to the bridge is owned by Palmer. And the developments that could potentially occur on the other side in that 40 or in that section 2 miles out of town in the future, is that going to quell developers from wanting to come in? Because I don't want to be using something like that as a cudgel to keep development from happening. Versus if we're getting a grant that's covering it versus a loan, I think that's stuff that should be considered.
I think it does the reverse, and I hate to say that, because what happens is when you got a payback district, you will have developers coming in because they know that may be a hindrance to getting their development in. So they'll ask for a payback. So that way when they put in, they're just paying their fair share. They know the other side's going to be paying for their fair share, but it gets put in because the town spends the money out of impact fees or some other funds, and then the town gets paid back if that develops within 20 years. So really, you have a 20-year, and that's the payback timeframe that I'm used to, is you have 20 years, and surely something usually is going to happen within that timeframe. So most individuals that have that land don't want to wait 20 years to recoup their investment. They could, and that's their choice. But I think it works in getting the improvement in, getting it done right, instead of doing, like you see in some communities, half of an improvement rather than the full improvement. So that's the way to get it paid for, and you get reimbursed when the time comes, should they develop. And I've seen it encourage some development also.
I'm just more interested in making sure we don't, if we're getting a grant that the town's not having to pay anything on, that we're not sticking it to developers, if that ends up being the case. I'm sure there's going to be a cost to town.
Well, and
Okay.
I think it's only reimbursing us for our costs.
Okay, this
Yeah.
grant is for the county. It's not a town grant.
Okay.
This is the Washington County asking for grant for federal funds to pay the road. They're just wanting to know if we're going to support them.
Gotcha.
That's it.
And
That's all
does the
that wants.
does the grant cover the whole cost of paving?
I think it's going to cover the whole cost.
Plus right
Although
away?
their thing here, they have, their estimated cost is just shy of $5 million for the whole thing.
So does that cover like our portion of the road as well? Because we,
I take it to cover our portion of the road.
Well, if that's the case, then there's no basis for a payback.
no, because
We'll
it'll,
just have to
they'll
look at
finish
the-
up to the.
This says
Timeline.
preliminary design from State Route 59 to State Route 9. So I take it that that would cover whatever's inside this town limits of Virgin. What you're talking about.
Yeah, if that takes care of the payback, but
We'll have
then,
to wait and see.
but they still got some traffic calming. Now I want to see instituted.
Yeah. And so, and they did, I forgot when I was saying what all they talked about in here, they did talk about that a lot of the people that work at the park can't afford to live in Springdale or Rockville or Virgin. And so they're coming from Apple Valley or over there, and that it becomes prohibitive to them for getting to work when they've got to go all the way down and around, and that this would help with those that are working in the park. And I forgot about that. So what Rockville is going to do, they had planned to write their letter. And then I just got an email from them a couple of days ago that what they've decided to do is they've put off they want to know what Virgin wants to do. They're going to, in their letter of support or rejection, whichever one they decide to do for the road from Smithsonian Butte, they want to reference what we want to do here in Virgin about Sheep Bridge Road. And So what they have decided to do is they've scheduled a meeting with the county commissioners, and I believe it's this Ron Whitehead who signed this letter, who's the Public Works Director. I believe it's him. And they have a meeting on Tuesday next week to go and get their questions answered. And I'm going to be gone. Paul's going to be gone. Leroy's going to be gone on Tuesday of next week. And so I've asked Gene if he would go, and he said he will. I just have to follow up and find out what time this meeting is. So Paul's going to go get some info, and then we'll put this back on the agenda next month for us to talk about it again. So, and then at that point, when I have it, I'll have it on the agenda for us to decide whether we're going to support or reject. But in the meantime, what I think I want is, we got several letters today from people that were not going to be here for all of these issues on the work meeting. We got several letters from people in Desert Gardens. So if any of you have comments that you want to make about the paving of Sheep Bridge Road, if you guys could send us, put it in writing and send it to us, then we can have everything all in one thing. I'll still let you make comments next month, but it would be nice to have your opinion, your thoughts ahead of time.
Well,
Okay.
And Mayor, technically, they can make comments on the comment period because it's not.
Well, in the open forum
In the
tonight.
open
Well, there,
forum,
that's
yeah.
true, they can. Okay. This is for you for that meeting next week. Is there anyone who would like to have a copy of that? If so, we'll make a copy for you. If not, we're moving on.
I'll have it. So
Okay.
let's go.
Oh, Gene,
Yes.
Not
he's
yet.
asking if there's discussion.
Later on, is what she just said, so.
In open forum. You want to, Crystal, would you find out where Heath is? He told me he was going to be here at 6. Okay, so let's move on to the topic of street lighting then, because I'm going to keep this thing about short-term rentals for when Heath gets here. Or do you guys want to talk about the capital improvements committee first? Doesn't matter to you? Okay. All right, so street lighting, and I have discussion of street lighting in Desert Gardens, but really, I made an error when I typed that on this agenda. I should have said street lighting throughout town. That was an error on my part, because we're really following up on what we talked about last month before we then vote on it later on in the meeting. And it just affects Desert Gardens. So, I've been trying, I told you the other day, I was still struggling on how to broach the topic after our discussion the other day. So, okay with you if I just go ahead and
Go
talk
ahead.
about what we talked about?
Absolutely.
Okay. So last week, Gene and I met and we were talking about the issue of the street lighting. And he indicated to me in that meeting that if the ultimate decision was to remove the streetlights in Desert Gardens, that he would not object, although he would like to see a new survey. You told me a new survey may be done by an independent third party. And what was the other thing? There were 2 things.
I think was if it's going to be isolated to just Desert Gardens, that there needs to be.
No, it wasn't that.
Not that.
No.
Third party to maybe take a look at it and question the residents whether the current lighting
Yeah,
is
well, that's
adverse.
the survey portion
Right, but-
is to see it. What the reason we were talking about a different survey was before I looked at the previous survey as to what people wanted regarding lighting as kind of an abstract concept maybe in people's minds at that time. But now if we're about to get down to something that is real and going to actually happen, that might solidify people's minds on what they really want. And so when Jean had suggested one more survey done by a third party, I was okay with it. What do you guys think? The rest of the town council?
Yeah, I mean, we need to find out what they want.
Yes.
We also need to question what needs to happen in the rest of the town as well.
Well, I was assuming that the rest of the town was going to be well, we have the options. There's different options. And so what I was thinking was that we could potentially do the replacement of the streetlights with the dark sky lighting everywhere else in town while we see what the people in Desert Gardens want, while they do this second survey. That's what I was thinking. So we have the spreadsheet. Back in April, we got a spreadsheet from Rocky Mountain Power that listed the address of every street pole in town and what it would cost, what kind of light was on there right now, what kind of light would replace it of the two different types of fixtures that they had, and what it would cost for the different fixtures. And so it's easy to take that spreadsheet and just go mark off the ones that are in Desert Gardens and then subtract them, and you've got what it would cost to do the rest of the town. And when I did that, I came up with where it was $8,330 to do the entire town with the dark sky lighting. If we remove the stuff for Desert Gardens, it's $3,960 for the rest of town. So there was an option. That's why I want to talk about this. What options do we want to proceed? We can decide that when we get into the actual meeting. But since Gene said he was going to step back and see what we want to do, that I thought we could have some other options maybe. But we could go forward with doing the rest of the town. No problem there.
Is there any problem with doing the night skies for the whole town? Desert Gardens plus everyone else, because.
Oh, no,
Remember the description that kind of wanted the night skies over
no.
what was there.
Yeah, that's what was talked about in the first survey, but we were saying that it was really close between those who wanted the lights gone and those who wanted the dark sky. And so it's like, this is where I was, when Gene had suggested a second survey, I was like, okay, in the beginning, it was more abstract. But if you're getting down to, we're going to do one of these two, and which one are we going to do? I think that might focus people's minds closer on what exactly they want. And so that's why I didn't really have an objection to doing another survey. I don't know what the people at Desert Gardens think about that, but that's what I didn't have an objection to it.
I don't object to the survey. The only thing I object to would be the cost of removing the lights just for Desert Gardens. I don't think the rest of the town should absorb that. The difference between maybe if we did the night skies for the whole town, difference between that per pole, I think they should have to pay if we remove their poles.
We looked at for how many houses there were in the development and what the cost was, what Rocky Mountain Power said the cost was, they estimated to remove the poles. If we divided it out, I think it was something like $180 per house to contribute toward the total of the people in Desert Gardens. I think that's what we came up with, but they'd have to decide.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with them if they decide to do that, as long as that fund, that money is put in a trust fund held by the town until we have that sufficient money to remove all those poles.
Okay. So what are your guys' thoughts on if we were to go ahead and tell Rocky Mountain Power, go ahead and replace all the lights in the town with the dark skylight compliant lighting while we do a survey on Desert Gardens? Should we at least do that?
Why not just replace all, because Desert Garden wanted dark sky lighting, correct? Why
It
not
was-
redo it all over town, including Desert Gardens?
And not even let them take the lights out if they want?
Well, the ones that we talked about, I think, Darlene, didn't you send me some I know we're not doing public
Yeah.
comment. But she sent me some information about different lights.
They were quite, you went through that in the last meeting, how they were quite expensive.
Yeah, but they were similar to what she had shown in that meeting.
They're the ones that currently in Desert Garden, they are downlit, they are not fully shielded.
No, the ones that you were proposing were similar to the ones that she had shown.
Yeah, they're like the ones in the park.
They're not similar.
They're not similar to the ones that you discussed.
No, the ones that I put on the screen are the ones that Rocky Mountain Power said, these are the ones we're going to put. Wherever in town it goes, these are the ones that can put. Yes, they're downlit, but they're not fully shielded.
So I'm with Paul. I think that's where the conversation was going. That you guys didn't mind downlit shielded light, that they didn't mind downlit shielded lighting.
Well,
And so we should, if we're gonna have to replace it anyway, we just as well do the whole entire town and keep this uniform.
Okay. I was trying to give them an option. Okay.
I
But
want to add though.
we can give them an option to submit a petition to remove the lights instead.
But what I'm saying is if we pay $4,000 to put the lights in Desert Gardens and then they turn around to have them removed, we've just wasted $4,000.
Well,
Why
we can-
should we
I wanna
waste
add to that, too.
$4,000?
I think on top of that, one of the points that was brought up this last meeting when the discussion was hot and heavy, and I had never really paid attention to it, but I think that Desert Gardens has a good point. They're the only subdivision that has lighting. And so if they want their lighting removed and we can work out some sort of a deal where there's some input from them to cover the cost, it'll end up saving the town money in the long run because we're not having to replace bulbs. Those are still public lights. So I think there's some validity to at least listening to it. And
Yeah, I don't have
So
a
that's,
problem with them removing
that's,
it.
so that's why my proposal was, let's just do the rest of the town and let them do a
What-
survey, make sure what they want to do, and then do
We-
whatever they want to do.
Yeah, we can address that when we get to
Okay.
that agenda
Okay.
item.
All right. Then the third item, I'm going to move on to Capital Improvements Committee, and then we'll go back to the short-term rentals and residential hosting. We were waiting for you, Heath, because this one topic that I have on the work meeting really wanted your input on, which was number A. So, so the Capital Improvements Committee, as you know, we voted for that committee a couple months ago. And so the way the committee is to be set up, we've got two members, me and Leroy, mayor and treasurer. And then I had to get one member of planning commission. And I asked Wyatt Lee if he would be, willing to be on the capital improvements committee. He said yes. So we've got three. And then the other two people that get appointed to the capital improvements committee are two people here in town that we choose that we think would be good to be on the committee. So I have someone that I would like to, I have one name that I'd like to appoint. And then I don't have any suggestions for the second. And so I was open to suggestions from you guys. The person I wanted to appoint, I have not talked with that person yet, but she is here tonight, and that was April. That I thought as an engineer, she would be good on the capital improvements committee. She's somewhere back there. I saw her. There she is. And since it's all about what improvements the town needs for capital projects, that she would be a good input. But any suggestions on a second person? Second, any thoughts from others? Because this will be, as we know, we're talking about big projects, big infrastructure things that are needed in town. And recommendations to then make to the planning commission and the town council about what things infrastructure needs to be done. Correct, Paul? Yes.
Yeah, they review all the capital, make suggestions, review all the capital improvement requests, and create a priority for us to review.
Because I need to get the other two people appointed to the committee so that we can then get started, and we need to have a meeting. And so I need two more people. Even though I could probably go ahead with the three of us because that would form a quorum, but it would be nice to have the full committee from the get-go. So if you guys need more time to think about it, that's okay. Yeah, I don't want to just
And-
necessarily put you on the spot.
And it's got to
but-
be approved by us, so
And it
whatever
has to
names
go
we
to a
pick,
vote
we'll
of the
have to
town
put it on the
council
agenda.
anyway.
Just need to think about people that might be willing to serve.
Yeah.
I'd like a little more time.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and one thing I might suggest is I don't know, where does Wyatt live way out?
He's up on our end.
Yeah,
April down,
and we
so
got
should
Desert
find some
Gardens,
people.
somebody in here, you got what I was thinking,
You can
yeah.
just get somebody center of town, maybe
Center
another
of
person
town, or,
Mhm,
up towards Pocketville or something.
mhm.
and if we can't think of anybody, you can put it in the newsletter and
Newsletter
have
and
them.
ask for who would be interested.
Yes,
Who wants to come in and get beat up with us? That's a great idea.
Yeah, really, that's a great, they're like, oh yeah, let me be that person. Okay. Then that brings us to the last item, which is why I was waiting for Heath. He's like, thanks a lot. So we put this on the agenda because there had been a request, an application for a residential hosting permit in one of the houses in Desert Gardens. And as required, Crystal sent out a notice that this house had applied for and was going to be more than likely receiving, although the letter said granted, a residential hosting permit. And we've gotten back lots of feedback from people in Desert Gardens. And the main issue that is coming up is that any such residential hosting permit or even a short-term rental of any house in Desert Gardens violates their CC&Rs. And what we responded to them is that it's not up to the town to enforce CC&Rs. It's up to your homeowners association to enforce CC&Rs. And some of the pushback has been, well, if you know our CC&Rs disallow this, why would you even have give them a residential hosting permit in the first place? So what I wondered, my first question for you, Heath, is it at all legal for us on our residential hosting permit application? Can we legally even ask, have you gotten approval from your HOA? That's not us enforcing their CC&Rs. That's just asking if they've gone through the process. Is that illegal or can we do that?
I don't know if that per se would be illegal. What would we do with the information? I don't know. There are certain things that we can't ask constitutionally about a person's race, religion, things like that. But whether or not they've gotten approval from their HOA, we can ask that. But if it's no.
We still give them the
that can't be a
permit?
That can't be a governing factor in whether we grant a permit or not. To not grant a permit because it violates one association's CC&Rs would be effectively enforcing their CC&Rs.
Right.
for them.
Right.
And that's not what we're here to do as the land use authority.
So from the seat of the zoning administrator, when people call up and ask to do a residential hosting unit or want to do solar or a pool or anything within any of the subdivisions in town, my advice to them is always, this is the process for the town. I would advise you to talk to your homeowners association or read your CC&Rs to make sure that you're within compliance. And that's it. Okay. And sometimes they blow me off, but that's what I tell them.
So I do want to read one thing to all of you that are here from Desert Gardens. And many of you expressed concern, and we were saying how we don't enforce CC&Rs. I want to read something, a little section of the ordinance we have in town for short-term rentals. And our short-term rental ordinance is divided into two sections. One section is for subdivisions that want to be short-term rental subdivision. And then the second part of this subdivision, this is chapter 60 of our code. The second half of this code all has to do with residential hosting, which is basically someone renting a bedroom in their house out or a part of their house for, there's empty chairs in the front, Kent. Whether, where you live in the house and you rent out part of your house to a vacationer. Sort of like the original purpose of Airbnb, back when Airbnb first got started, all it was someone renting an extra room in their house, long before it ever became where you could rent an entire house on Airbnb. It was always initially it was renting something extra in your house that you weren't using. But here is this section in the code that I want to read to you, that we're not being unreasonable when we say we don't enforce the CC&Rs for a subdivision. And it says here, this is 60.04 subsection E, subsection 6. And it says, this town does not have authority and will not enforce CC&Rs or any other privately negotiated restrictive covenant. And that is in our code for residential hosting.
Also, the first sentence of that section says, this section does not supersede the CC&Rs or any other privately negotiated restrictive covenants established by private associations.
Mhm.
The association still has full power to enforce it
On their own.
Or
Yes.
individual property owners within that.
Yes, I did read today when I was looking at enforcement that it doesn't have to be the HOA that enforces it. It could be an individual property owner that could try to enforce the CC&Rs. But I just wanted to make it clear that even in our code, it says that it's not up to the town to enforce the CC&Rs in a subdivision. So we're not being hard-nosed, we're not being unreasonable. This is what our code says. And our code says that because my understanding, that's even the law.
These are private specialized restrictions as to a certain area. And for the city, town to be enforcing that, we'd be using taxpayer money to enforce a specific regulation relating to the specific area which everybody's taxpayer funds. And so it's just not a proper use of funds. And only we enforce ordinances that apply to everyone. We have a requirement constitutionally to have equal protection of the laws, and equal application of laws. And where this is a private law or private restriction, we can't and shouldn't be able to enforce them.
Okay. And let's go back to my very first question that I asked you, which was about putting a question on our permit form that asks if you're in a subdivision, have you gone to get approval from your HOA? So it sounds like we can at least ask the question, but there's nothing we can do with it once we have the answer.
Well, if we denied the permit on the grounds that it wasn't allowed under the CC&Rs,
They were in trouble.
and they challenged that,
Mhm.
then
There is precedent.
Not,
it will.
no, I'm not going to take public comment. What?
No, I'm just saying, our position is solid.
Okay. So I don't know what to say to the people in Desert Gardens about, there's nothing we can tell you on how to enforce your CC&Rs. It's up to your homeowners association and it's up to the residents in the subdivision. That's all I know to tell you. And we're not trying to be hard-nosed or not understanding of your issues, because believe me, I understand. I totally understand. But unfortunately, I'm not taking public comment.
Comment, I have a question.
Well, okay, I would call that comment, but okay.
My question is, what criteria does the town use to determine if they are granting these hosting applications?
It's pretty easy to get one.
I'm not saying
It-
don't get one, I'm saying what criteria do you use to determine if you're going to grant it or not?
It's all there in chapter 60.
It's in chapter
has the
60.
step-by-step
It
what we have to do.
is subsection D.
Standards and requirements for residential hosting facilities.
And that's what you use as your basis to say yes or no?
Yes.
There
That's what
are,
my question was.
Okay.
there are 14 different requirements.
Is this complete?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, we're actually 15 minute, what?
Do you want comments from the rest of the council?
Oh, well, of course. I'm always open to comments from the rest of the council.
I clearly understand what Heath is saying, and I've been arguing this point with a lot of citizens. And it's basically also an unlawful delegation of authority if we're really giving CCNRs the ability to do enforcement of our, it's an unlawful delegation of zoning power also. And then
To
also with.
us? To us?
No, to the HOAs.
What
If-
is an
If
unlawful
we're
delegation?
enforcing their HOAs, it becomes an unlawful delegation of power.
Under the Utah Constitution, each municipality is delegated certain police powers to be the land use authority in the local area.
Right?
And by us enforcing private CCNRs, we're delegating some of that police power.
Oh, I get it. I got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
some of the,
I understand.
that's a legislative
Got it.
issue.
I get it.
And so I also putting that statement on the application, I would have concern for the same reason he said. Because if you deny it for some other reason, they're going to argue that you denied it because of the CCNR. So I exclude that out and just
Okay.
base it on this. However, with that said, I think our residential hosting facility purpose could have some revisions. It's pretty loose. And
The purposes section? You said the
the whole, the
purposes?
residential hosting facility section of.
The whole 60.04.
Yeah, we should take another look at it and tighten it up because I think there are things that we can do to change that to provide more protections to the neighborhood. For example, if you look at, you can have a residential hosting permit that allows 10 people in a house. What is that based on? Number of bedrooms? You could have a tiny
Fire
house
code.
with 10, what's that?
That's based on fire code.
Fire code, but that becomes, it also affects the amount of sewer because it's affecting, if you're on a septic system, the use of the sewer. And so you have some different issues there that you may want to look at and limit the number of people in the home. You also want to tighten up probably the, you can have a permanent resident and not just the owner. I don't think permanent residence is a requirement under state law, only the owner is. That has to be there. And I know we've had some abuses in the town on having the permanent owner being the person that's in the residential hosting. So what I'm proposing is that we send it to planning board and have them take a closer look at ways that we can see if there's different things we can do to protect the neighborhoods in revisions of the residential hosting.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, why don't we ask Paul to take that?
Take that task on. You got to be careful what you say.
It's got to go to planning board and I'll be glad to send them my recommendations, but.
Well, that's what he's talking about.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Anybody else? If not, we can take a 15-minute break before we, I'm not taking public comment.
Question. Has this permit been issued?
Has what?
This permit, this RHF, been issued? Has
No.
it been granted?
No.
So what is our recourse for those of us that don't want that?
I
The
can tell you how you can do
homeowners
that.
association has to
You've
enforce
got to
it.
build your homeowners
You
association.
better build your
back up.
homeowners association. No, I'm not asking for a lawsuit. Well, if that's how you see it.
We have no HOA. It's just like us.
So,
We don't have an HOA, a lawyer is the next.
You'd have to get your HOA
get
back
your
up.
HOA
and-
organized.
And you'd also have to reinforce or get enforced all the other things that are out of compliance with your CCNRs. That's right. You'd have to get an HOA. I mean, you can file suit on anybody if you think you got cause.
Doesn't that depend on what the CCNR say? A lot of them have private enforcement by a homeowner in the subdivision. So a homeowner in a subdivision can enforce the residential Holston going in contrary to the CCNRs. So you can do that as a private action yourself.
Okay, so we have 13 minutes before our regular meeting starts. And why don't you come up and talk to me about what you want to talk about, that you had a comment? Yes. Why don't you come up? We're going to take a break for 13 minutes and you can come and talk to me. Okay? Okay, we're taking a break. You can come now. Okay, thank you. You can come up here now.
This is why. Virgin.municipalcodeonline.com. Oh, you're good. No, you're fine. So you just go here. .com. And now, when you go in it, what the thing that's gonna, the reason I'm telling you this is there's more books in there that pop up, go to land use. Okay, and then go to chapter 60. And you're gonna scroll all the way down, because this is short term, it says, this is just new subdivisions, it has nothing to do, they can't even do it in short term. Or in, old subdivisions, so you go down to 60.4, I believe, or 60. Right here, 60.04, and then scroll down and clear down. Standards and requirements for residential. It's an interesting thing. I was up with them when they wrote this. I was the deputy clerk when they wrote this. And we do everything, because there's a lot of things they have to jump through. And you need to, as a resident, you should know those as well. You should be like, did they do this? Did they do this? You know what I mean? So these are and so you want to look at it, did I do this?
So do we.
Yeah, that's up in Desert Garden. Do you live out there? Yeah, so it just depends on which side you're on, like not side of. I mean, like if you live over here where George and the Blackmores live, or if you live over here where the Joneses live, and is that over here? Well, right here. I know where you live. So yeah, and these, all it is basically says that you have to go to the health department, you have to talk to the health department, you have to pay a transfer.
Happy.
But the thing about it is you can do them, but you have to follow every one of these standards that starts in 60.4. Well, that's what this argument's about, is because we can't enforce their CCNRs. It sounds like CCNRs, C, and R's. And R's. It's the rules that they're keeping. Yeah, but when the subdivision was initially put in. So that's what the conversation is about. So, any. No, and they can ask, and actually, there's so they should come and ask her directly first. It saves fights if you can write to your neighbor and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, what's happening. And then but that's different though. I mean, that's your thing. You're not charging for it. You know, that's not an RHF. I know, I have a 23-year-old. So they're like, can you just move yeah. Is this yours? I need one of those. I got that one.
Put ice in there, it'll
This Maverick is good. The older. I like to drive. I'm driving to Salt Lake.
Oh, yeah. This is better. If
My grandkids see this. How are you? Sure, it's good to see you. I didn't know who did that. No, thank you. I made a three on. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to call
Prayer.
Okay. The prayer.
You know, you could call them Mr.
Oh, I can just turn off.
And also.
Yeah, I know. I've never, they never like stepped up and say, I'll do it. You have to.
Whatever you want to do. I'm okay with doing it now. My only thing is, I don't want to spend money to their lights out.
No, I understand this, but this is where I'm like, and we'll talk about it, but. I would spend the money
I agree with that. So if you want to do this, don't turn cost money.
It's gonna cost money.
This will probably cost us.
What, I know what express this, but I
I've never brought that up.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Let's get back. Okay, calling the meeting to order now that Misty has come back to her chair. All right, call to order. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance and then the opening thought or prayer. So, Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful that we live in this wonderful country where we have freedoms and the ability to worship Thee and to do those things that we enjoy in life. We pray that your Spirit will be with us in this meeting, that we might have empathy for one another and understand each other's views. We pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, sorry, my mind drifted. Council comments. Updates by mayor. So let's see, last month, I told you guys that we got approval for the, from the BLM for the easement to cross their land for the east water tank on the east side of town. And we are, November 11th is the deadline for us to get our application in for funding to the state. And it will be, I just got a text message from Rod Mills just a little while ago that November 11th is the deadline. And January 6th, I believe, is the date of the meeting where we will talk to the people from the state to get the funding again. And so that's where we are working on that paperwork for funding. So that's where we are on that. And I don't know how long it will take once we get the funding approval. I don't know how long it will take for us to get started, but at least we're finally moving on that. And that's where we are on that one. Let's see, what else did you guys, we talked about Sheep Bridge Road during the work meeting, so there's nothing else really for me to talk about on that. What else do you guys want updates on? You asked me for some updates.
Pocketville?
Pocketville. So I had my meeting back in July with the residents of Pocketville Road. They wanted to do a follow-up meeting a month later in August, and I was unable to accommodate that. I had a lot going on and I couldn't do a follow-up meeting, but I have done some investigation, let's put it that way. And I've talked with the town engineer about getting, this is funny. I talked to the town engineer about getting the right of way that we need from the Clark's house all the way up to close to Pocketville Road. And then I talked with the Water Conservancy District. Speaking of Pocketville Road, this crosses over with Pocketville Road, this water pipeline that they want to do up Kolob Terrace Road, that agreement was never signed after, it was approved at the December meeting, but it was never signed. And so Zach Renstrom had asked me for what was the status on that one time when I was the Water Conservancy District. And I said, let me see what I can find out. And so I dug through all the papers in the office and could not find any signed copy. Crystal went through the email. She had no forwarding to Water Conservancy District. They're saying they never got it. And so we are assuming that the agreement was never signed. So I've had Heath look at it to make some changes, and Zach agreed that since it was never signed that we could renegotiate some on that. But the changes that Heath is recommending are actually beneficial to the town. You want to mention a little bit about those?
I just simply added, it wasn't very much, but we added language to it saying that should the town determine that it is in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the town to dead end Pocketville Road, that they would cooperate with us because the dead end would occur on
Their land.
yeah, conservative district land, and Zach didn't seem to be opposed to it, so I provided that to him a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, but I thought you were also negotiating with them about the issue of ownership. There was who would pay for something later, and they were going to make us pay for something that somebody else paid for. It's like, why? Okay.
I have a question. Heath, are the changes to this document small enough that it doesn't need to come back before council?
I want to make sure that the district is fine with the language, so I sent in proposed language and I haven't heard back. Once we get it, yeah, we can get on agenda. I think it's significant enough.
Okay. And so the reason I was talking with him was we were talking about whether or not we had many different options with Pocketville Road that came out of this meeting, but I wanted to find out, would there be objections if it was made a cul-de-sac? I wanted to address all of that. And I've had feedback from 2 of the county commissioners that say it's not our problem. It's in your town. It's up to you if you close the road or not. And then Water Conservancy District, because if it was made a cul-de-sac, it would be on their land. And they're like, we don't care. It won't affect, would not affect where they would put this pump that would send the water up Kolob Terrace Road through that pipeline. And because I was concerned, would this affect that? And then he mentioned that Rocky Mountain Power has come and is going to be putting in a substation up there at the intersection of Pocketville Road and Kolob Terrace Road. And I'm like, and they want to buy some of Water Conservancy District's land. I'm like, wait. I said, we've got something we might want to do. I don't know that we want to, but we might want to do this. And then we've got Rocky Mountain Power that wants some of the land. And then we've got Water Conservancy District that wants to do something with the land. And I said, let's all 3 sit down and see if we can't work out an agreement where we all get what we want. And so he indicated, the guy from Rocky Mountain Power said, oh yes, our real estate guy is working on getting the right-of-way for down here. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, so am I. And then I said, well, do you know that the town actually has the right-of-way right there at the intersection where Kolob Terrace Road comes down? And then the very beginning of Pocketville Road, we actually have the right-of-way. And Rocky Mountain Power wants it. And I'm like, well, then we're just going to have to negotiate then, aren't we? So that's where we are in Pocketville Road. So that's my update. And then and I need to have the follow-up meeting with the people on Pocketville Road. And one of the things that I talked with the town engineer about, besides getting the right-of-way, was whether or not we would be having doing a traffic study of how many cars are coming down. And he said, well, if I have a traffic study, all I'm going to do is send my staff to sit in a chair with a counter and count traffic. And he said, you can have your town residents do that and save your money. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I was going to talk with the people on Pocketville Road about whether or not we're going to be doing something on
Yeah.
a strip. Well, that's why I asked him if we couldn't do that. And he's like, no, I'm going to pay. I have an employee sit there. So are you saying he was pulling my leg and I fell for it? Okay, so let's see. Any other updates that you guys would like to know about? Town council? Anybody in the audience? Okay. Oh, I'll be gone next week to the convention for the Utah League of Cities and Towns in Salt Lake. That's next week. I'll be leaving on Tuesday and I'll be gone the rest of the week. And you'll be gone most of the week and you'll be gone all the week. So it'll just be Jean and Misty that are here for that time. I guess that's it for me. Any comments from anybody else on the council?
No comments today.
Just a real quick one. I had a call, somebody asking if we were doing a traffic study because DOT has 4 different strips out. That's not the case. It's just they're doing their fall traffic count.
I wondered what that was.
I called today because I had several people ask, but one guy in particular thought maybe we were doing a traffic study, so.
Okay. Anybody? Misty, Leroy?
I just wanted to have the council, we put some things in their packet, and the first one, it's called, if you look at it, it says balance sheet, general fund. And if you look at that, it gives you the fiscal year end totals from 2018 through 2022, which was June 30th of 2022. And it kind of shows you assets, how the town has grown. We had total assets in 2018 of $293,177. And in 2022, we had $1,205,714.62, with a majority of those assets being in funds that we've set aside for the water tank and for possible improvements to the roads. And then the second page on that just shows you where we were on income and so forth. And I just want to bring that to your attention. That council needed to know, and it's this is all public information. Anyone can get a copy of these. And then the other sheet is an actual year-to-date comparison to budget. And I've compared the first 2 months of August to our budget. And we should be at 17% of our budget now in revenue, and we're at 20%. We should be at 17% in expenses of our budget, and we're at 10.4%. So it just shows, for the public, it just shows that we're trying to manage things properly. Council, have any questions on those?
Thank you, Leroy.
All right, that's it for council comments. So now we're on to the consent agenda, which is approval of minutes. Yes? Oh, I did skip over that. Declaration of conflicts of interest. I am really so close on having a conflict of interest on under new business number 4, depending on if we get that far by 9 o'clock, the first one. I depending on what happens, I'll declare a conflict of interest if I need
You
to.
need to declare that you have a possible conflict of interest, whether you choose to recuse yourself from voting on that can be done at the time.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, then I'll say I have a conflict of interest on that agenda item, and that I will decide whether or not I'm going to recuse myself at the time it comes up for a vote. Okay. Anybody else?
Keith, even if you have a conflict of interest, you could vote on it as long as you
Declare it.
declare it.
Yeah.
Well, you declare it now, I might advise, obviously, Mayor and I talked about the situation, and she's kind of got my opinion on whether or not she should, vote, but she could make that determination.
Okay.
And I don't have any conflict of interest on anything else that's on the agenda. Anybody else?
No conflict of interest for me.
None for me.
None for me.
None for me.
A point of question, Gene, isn't there a potential conflict of interest with you receiving as part of your salary compensation fees for each permit that is approved based on the two agenda items for the preliminary plat and the final plat? So each of those houses that are approved,
I don't collect on stuff until stuff's actually built. Nothing to do with the plats.
well, isn't there an indirect conflict of interest because you're approving the plat, which creates the house that leads to your income on that?
Do you have that listed in your standing declaration that's on file with this town?
I don't think I ever made a standing
That's
one,
good.
but we should probably do that.
You need to.
Yep. Okay.
It simply
Yeah, I'll be
says,
happy to
"I
declare that.
appreciate your employment that you receive compensation based on permits issued." Again, one of those things, that would be an indirect, in your game. There's always no harm in declaring
Sure.
for possible conflict, whether or not you need to recuse on that one where it's indirect. I don't know.
Then, yeah.
So what is this called that a standing conflict of interest
Yeah,
form?
you're supposed to, every council member, the first of each year, needs to be at least putting their standing conflict list if they're doing business within the town.
So any permitting for me will have
I've got a nice little form that the Utah League of Cities and Towns formed out. that I can send
So
you.
all of us need to do one.
Yeah,
Okay.
you need to have every elected and appointed official, so members of the planning commission do as well.
Okay. I just remembered on council comments, there was one thing that I meant to say. I saw it in the minutes as I was reviewing the minutes for, that we're about to do on the council, the consent agenda. I saw something on the minutes that I wanted to mention during council comments and I forgot. And that is for Sean. You asked at the last meeting about the trail and whether or not we would ever have the meetings open to the public so that you could go. And I did talk to them and they said that this is not a meeting that's ever open to the public, the meeting that I attend. So it's just not a public group. And I said, okay, so I wanted to let you know that I did follow up and I did ask. Okay. All right, so on to the consent agenda. So we now have the consent agenda to approve the minutes from last town council meeting and to approve the checks and invoices for August 2022. I don't know about you guys, but I reviewed the many pages of minutes here, and I have an incredible number of changes that I will be sending over. This particular time, we had someone different do the minutes because Darcy couldn't do she couldn't attend the meeting and she couldn't do the minutes. So we had someone else do the minutes. And so they're different from what we're used to. And I mean, I've just got changes and changes on every page. So I have a lot of changes to send over. I can't even go over them all.
I had some grammatical ones as well that I was just gonna send over. They're just a few
Okay.
that I had that were, I thought I could just email them over after.
Okay, I'm going to give her my whole copy. There's too many.
Mayor,
Yes.
what I would suggest, we just pull that from the consent agenda and put it
Do
on
it next month.
next month.
Okay, all right. And then she can make the changes and get them
That way
back
we
to
can
us.
all see what those changes are.
Okay, all right. I like that idea. So we will delete approval of the minutes. We'll send it on, we'll table that till next month. And what about approval of the checks and invoices for August 2022?
Do we need to vote on that?
approval of, well, we'll do all that as part of the consent agenda.
No.
No?
The-
Separate?
You can do it separate. You don't have to do the entire consent agenda. If you're not ready for part of it, then you can just say there's a motion on checks and invoices.
Okay. All right. So I'll take a motion to approve the checks and invoices for August 2022.
I'll move that we approve the checks and invoices for August 22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, so open forum. Anyone have, wait, sorry, before open forum. Sean, did you want to do any kind of little talk about this letter that you gave us from the mosquito abatement? Okay, I just thought I'd let you do a report, a real short report if you wanted to, and then we'll do open forum.
Do you want your copy?
Sure. Yes, I'm glad you ended up getting the whole letter because we had a lot of fun this last month. September is actually the peak of our season. Instead of up north, it's usually July, August. But it gets so hot, the mosquitoes kind of go dormant for the summer, like the rest of us. We're all inside. And so it was just interesting in September with a lot of mosquitoes and a lot of issues with all that rain. Two specific instances was the Sky Mountain Golf Course had a lot of mosquitoes showing up on the 17th, 18th hole. So the reward for finishing the course, right? And just eating people up. And we had to track down where those were coming from. We found out it was a farm that was about a half mile away. And the wind was just blowing them right to there. There was going to be a huge development down there. And unfortunately that didn't happen. So we still have to treat that. It took us about at least half a day to track down. We had to cover the whole area and track down where these mosquitoes were coming from. There's a little pond about half the size of this area right here and millions of mosquitoes coming off of it. So got that taken care of. But in the meantime, we ran into a little bit of an issue with, we tried to contact everybody we could about the mosquito problem and that we would come and do some fogging. We rarely do that anymore because we mostly do larviciding, which is killing the larva in the water itself. So we don't have to spread the fog out and have that out in the environment as much. So we focus a lot on that, but this had to be done. And I'm driving down the golf course, backside of it, taking care of business, come back out on the road, and the police were there waiting for us. And we had to explain exactly what we were doing at that time. So it's kind of exciting when that happens. And so that was the only agency or people we did not remember to contact. So if you do see us out in our trucks and there's smoke coming out the back, it's not a bad thing, okay, typically. So in this case, usually there's a light flashing too. So it's, but we have to do it at night so we don't disturb the bees and other beneficial insects. The other thing is there, we did find a invasive species in the area. Once again, last year it showed up in Springdale and we were able to eradicate it from there. This year we found 0 from that area. But it showed up again in Harrisburg this year. And it was 9 years ago when we very first discovered some in that area, and they just completely had disappeared. The cold winters really help. This species carries many diseases: Zika, chikungunya, dengue fever, yellow fever. So it has the potential for that. It cannot really distribute those diseases because we don't have an endemic in our area. So it's not a concern there. They're just really annoying pests and will bite during the day. So we're trying to eradicate them there in that area. Hopefully they don't spread and become established in this area. So they're little black and white mosquito, if you can actually see them. They're kind of small. And they're day biting and they like your ankles and thin skin. So if you do see any of those, please call us because we don't want them to get established. But we're just having tons of fun and hopefully the season will end quickly. So thanks.
Thank you.
Fogging, can you notify people to be sensitive to the pesticides?
Yes, if we try to notify whatever area or region we're in, and we have to, by state law, post it on our website, which does absolutely no good because no one goes to the website to check to see if they're going to get fogged. But like I say, last year, we sprayed 8 gallons total for the whole year, and that's 1 ounce per 1 ounce per acre. So it's about a football field. We're spreading 1 ounce. So it's really diffused and not very concentrated. So
One suggestion, simple, is that the town keeps a list of people who have sensitive.
could be sensitive. That would be helpful. Any information we have is helpful. Of course, I'm aware of your guys' situation. I've treated many mosquitoes around there, but only larvicide, and haven't had to do the fogging. And that's why we focus on that. So yeah, if you're starting to see mosquitoes, that's almost too late. So check your water, dump out buckets, those kind of things. Thanks for giving me time for that. So, and you're open forum. Can I?
Yes,
Just throw a
sure.
few
We can
things?
go right into open forum.
Okay,
What's your
open forum, really quickly. I love this harvest time. So, and even more, I love the Harvest Fest that Crystal is heading at once again. And it was an awesome event last year. This year, it's going to be incredible. It's this weekend, so everybody come out, please, please. It's going to be tons of fun. I think it's 3 o'clock to 7:30. We get the extra half hour. Awesome. That'd be awesome. And because it's harvest time, I've got tons of vegetables in the back. People, please take them home. Cucumbers and squash. Also, one other thing, I know it was annoying to have to drive around, but the response by the town was awesome. I think it was 9:30 last night. I noticed a leak out here. And 7:30, 8 o'clock this morning, I go out there and Dan's already working away and taking care of it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anybody else for open forum?
April McKeon. So I've got a couple of things I want to talk about. The short-term rentals and residential hosting, and it's not just related to Desert Gardens. So when I first moved to Virgin, there were no short-term rentals allowed at all. And I understand times change. I totally get that. And with that, our ordinances have evolved, and they've allowed certain things in our community. I recall reading in our newsletter a couple of articles that indicated that there's research done that some of these short-term rentals and RHFs can destroy the fabric of the town and a community. That was from our own newsletters. And the ordinance has evolved, and I agree with Paul that those need to be revisited because they do have impacts on the residents of Virgin. So it wouldn't hurt to go back and take a look at those and see if they're the ordinances that we want for this town. Okay, in terms of Sheep Ridge Road, I think I kind of concur with the mayor that there's good and bad with projects like this. When I first read about it, that we'd be talking about this, my engineer brain thought, what's the cost benefit of a project like this? I didn't know the cost. I kind of assumed it'd be $1 million a mile, and that's kind of what you indicated, about $5 million. And the benefits, I looked up this letter that Ron Whitehead sent. And he says, one of the greatest economic benefits would be reducing the travel costs of potential employees traveling their homes in Hilldale, Colorado City. I thought, well, okay, I get that. But Jean just commented that you got to look at the big picture. That's looking at the big picture. But it almost seemed like that's more important than the residents of Virgin to some people. I don't really agree with that. I think we need to take a look at a couple things. One thing is that along that road, people already travel quite quickly, even for a gravel dirt road. And so I would suggest that we ask for speed bumps between SR9 at some point, maybe not right off SR9, but at some point where the residents begin to the bridge, that we have some kind of speed control. And UDOT said that people don't obey speed signs, so speed signs are not going to do it. And then we might have some large truck restrictions. I don't know how you restrict them on weight or axles, something. Because if you're looking to just help the tourists and the people traveling to go to work, they're not going to be driving big semi trucks. So we kind of need to take a look at how we can keep bigger trucks off that road, because there's some conflict with the bicyclers, the walkers. People actually walk on that road too. So we might want to have them take a look at a bike path or walking path in conjunction with the road. The other thing that came to mind when Jean made the comment about like the residents and the big picture, and it's not just about lights in your windows, but it almost seems to me that they will be looking at a zoning change for that area east of Sheep Bridge Road, probably between SR9 to the bridge. We had that issue come up before with highway resort zone. And I think that that's rural residential currently, and it needs to stay rural residential because there is impact to people that live in those neighborhoods.
This is between the bridge and SR9.
Yes, not
Okay.
all of it is rural residential. There's the commercial section and then the rest is rural residential. So, I'm a little skeptical. I think as soon as that road gets paved, people are going to want to start, changing that, putting motels. Or I don't want an RV park across the street from me. I know I'm just one person, but I think that the town of Virgin and the people that we put in your positions to take a look at the residents first and not be as concerned about Hilldale people and Apple Valley people, and at least take into consideration that we do live here and that we want to stay here. So I think that's everything I wanted to talk. Oh, and we probably don't need any highway lights on that Sheep Bridge Road either. SR9 doesn't have them. You don't need them on Sheep Bridge Road. Street lighting in Desert Gardens, I think it's fine to have another. I don't know who you would approve to be like a third party.
Mhm.
Do we have to hire somebody? How does that work?
Probably.
Probably. So it's up to Desert Gardens to hire somebody to do
Oh,
a
no,
survey?
we'll do it.
Oh, I see.
We're the
Okay.
ones requesting it. We would do
Okay,
it.
I think that's fine. And I don't know that what we'd want to do in Desert Gardens needs to pour over into the rest of the town, but, one of the benefits of living here is to have the night skies. People come here for that. They want that. So, as terms of residents, I know there's people that have children maybe in their neighborhoods and they want more lighting for their safety as they're out playing and bicycling, and that's all fine. But, I think the residents of Desert Gardens are pretty happy to at least look at a night sky type lighting or no lighting. So we'll just have to get that survey and see how that all shakes out. Okay, thank you. Oh,
Okay.
and the other thing,
You're running out of time.
okay, I got one thing. So the Capital Improvements Committee, I'd be happy to serve on that. I do have a lot of experience with roads. I actually offered Mitzi to go through with her the roads and do a pavement management plan for over the next several years. And I just put my input out there and just different things that I'm capable as an engineer, and be happy to do it for the town.
Okay,
So thank you.
thanks, April.
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 Oh, what?
Will you give me your phone number? Write it down in here for me.
Okay, anybody else on open forum while April gives her the phone number? Darlene, quickly.
Darlene Pope, So I concur with what April said. I just wanted to build on it just a minute. So employees in the park was mentioned in that letter. $5 million for maybe 30 people. And there's way more people who would be impacted by paving Sheep Ridge here. I also think it's the charge of my city council to protect and consider the needs of the citizens of the town. And it just seems counterintuitive to value the needs of Hilldale and Colorado City over our citizens and without deeply considering the impact to us. And I have to question why 2 roads for maybe, well, let's say it's 100 people. Why build 2 roads at a cost of $5 million and more for the other one for 100 people? It doesn't seem, as April said, cost effective. Thank you.
Wyatt Lee, I just want to state this real quick. I've been involved with a few events that have been put on out past Sheep's Bridge Road, and I've heard incessant complaints of the dust on Sheep's Bridge Road, so I don't understand the pushback from paving Sheep's Bridge Road versus the dust. So that's all my comments are.
Thank you.
My name is Keith Fanta. I live in Desert Gardens. We just finished building our house back in May and moved in, and we do back up to Sheep Ridge Road, so we see it every day. But my biggest concern with the Sheep Ridge Road project would be what happens where it hits SR9. I know try and pull out of our development heading either east or west is risky. The cars and trucks are flying through there. I don't think, whatever distance it is to Sheep Ridge Road, it's going to be too much difference. So I think you need to take consideration that that's going to be a dangerous, risky intersection as traffic builds up on Sheep Ridge Road. And something needs to be done to keep from having a lot of accidents and injuries and potential fatalities on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Julie Tyler,
How do you spell the last name?
Tyler.
Oh, Tyler. Okay.
Yeah, and we eat on our deck probably 2/3 of our meal and watch Sheep Ridges Road. And I'd say 50% of the people keep to the speed limit, but a lot of them just buzz through so fast. And we were on our bikes the other day, and one guy came through so fast, and Mike went like this to try and slow him down. They glared at Mike and sped up, and he was worried about his wife coming behind him because I might not see them. But we see so many people on their bikes out there and walking. If they are going to double the speed limit when it's 20 miles an hour, what are they going to do if it's paved and 40 miles an hour? And I think that I just want to put out there that I'm against the paving.
Okay.
Amen to what she said.
Okay. Thank you.
On the Sheep Ridge Road, I haven't got any comment on it other than the group that's building on the front of us there on 9. There needs to be something done with that road, correct? Because there's a gas station going in on.
Yeah, they
on
have
that.
to do something.
So what I was trying to figure out was, what are we gonna do? You guys talked about paving half the road, but what happens to the other half of the road if nobody goes in there?
Hey, can you state your name? I don't think, so that it's on the record.
Bill
I know who you are, but
Yeah.
they need it for the
I live
record,
in-
so.
Yeah, up on there, I face the gas station. What I'm trying to figure out is how they handle that gas station. If they're gonna put the gas station's going in the next 6 months. And if they pay half of it and we don't pay the other half, this whole discussion is up for grabs, right? I mean, I don't see how the road is going to get paved unless it's done here.
Yeah, they have to pay from SR9 to the end of their property. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's half the road.
Yes, and it would be the person with the property on the other side that would pave the other half.
It's actually about 2/3 of the width of the road, enough for safe travel to my both
Okay.
directions.
Okay, so you got safe. I have never gone from a gas station into a gas station from a road that was half paved.
It's about 2/3, so it's gonna actually be wider than half the road. It has to be wide enough that there's safe travel to vehicles going in both directions, in and out of gas stations.
Yeah, okay, but there's people coming up the road too, correct? I go there, what I'm saying is I look over on that road every day, and there are huge vehicles, SUVs going down that road, and they're gonna use that gas station. You know, there's no doubt about it. Where's all this gonna happen? I don't understand the.
You mean where is
discussion.
the paving of Sheep Bridge Road going to happen?
Well, if
That
you
the
don't-
county
if you
wants to
don't
do?
pave it, if you don't pave it with this, what's going to pave
Oh,
it?
I see. Okay.
You know, how are they gonna handle that? I've never pulled in from a gravel road to a gas station before. So.
Okay.
Comment.
Thanks, Bill.
Anybody else before we move on? Okay. Then if Bill was the last one, then we are ready to close the public meeting and open the public hearing on the ordinance on salary. So I'll take a motion.
Motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, anyone who wants to make public comment who had seen the ordinance about setting new compensation rates for Virgin's elected, appointed, and statutory officers. Any comments? No one has texted me a comment. Oh, wait, let me see. Hold on. No. Okay. If there is no public comment for the public hearing, then we can close the public hearing and go back to the public meeting.
I propose we close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Nope. Sorry.
I close the public hearing and open the public meeting.
Okay.
Sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So among the town council members, discussion on this item. Any discussion? If not, I will start.
What? Oh, go
Okay,
ahead.
no.
And then I'll follow up.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I'm not sure, let me look at this ordinance. Yes, it mentions in one of the whereases that there had been several raises over the past several years. They had not been done by ordinance. And so now we are trying to do the raises correctly this time. And then hopefully from now on, every time there's raises for the staff, whether it's elected officers or appointed officers or any of the town employees, hopefully it's done correctly and done by ordinance from now on. So the new rates were just, the elected officers, let's see, for town council, I think everyone was raised about $50 a month. Is that what it was? Okay, and the mayor went up $200. The appointed officers in planning commission, I think they also went up 50. Is that what it was? And then we gave the planning commissioner 100, raised him $100 a month. And then we gave a raise to the town clerk and to Darcy, because Darcy had been not had a raise in a while. And I don't remember what we raised Darcy to. We were discussing Crystal's salary, whether to go to salary or an hourly rate. And we decided, I let her choose, and she wanted to go salary as opposed to hourly. And I did want to make one comment about that, which is that speaking of hourly versus salary, in my entire life, I had an hourly job when I worked for my dad in his restaurant when I was in junior high. After that, I have never had a job where I wasn't paid by salary, ever. So when I moved here and everybody gets paid by the hour, I thought that was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. I'm like, why? Why do you not get a salary? So I asked Crystal if she would like to have a salary instead of having to, do the hourly thing. She's like, I'd really rather have a salary. So we took the hourly rate we were moving her to and converted it to salary, just so you know. So that's all I was going to say for now.
For now. I guess I should explain, I was the catalyst for this ordinance back in, I should say, a funny thing happened to me on the way of being elected. Prior to my election, I go to the municipal code and it said commissioners or council members make $100 a month. So during the campaign, I joked that it's going to take me all 4 years to pay back my election campaign because it was $100 a month. So that's what I thought I was actually going to be making. So in February, because it took 2 months for the town to get the banking straightened out for me, I noticed in my bank account, it was more than $200. So I contacted the mayor and I said, what's going on? And she explained, no, this is what the salaries currently are. And the code hasn't kept up with the salaries that have been passed. And my response is, well, we have to amend this section because we got to let the public know exactly what individuals are making. And the mayor said, look, we're going to have raises. I'm proposing raises in the budget for next year. Instead of doing 2 amendments, let's just wait until we do the budget and then we can proceed with the amendment of this code provision. So I said, oh, all right, that makes sense to me. Then in July, I saw that our raises came through without amending the code. So I raised the issue and the mayor asked me to quickly draft an ordinance. I did, but it didn't get noticed in time for the hearing. So that's why there's a little delay in this coming forwards. In this whole process, I've already told Leroy this, and I already told the mayor this, and this is not a comment on whether planning board or Crystal should get raises or get paid. I'm going to vote no, but it's my own philosophy of an elected official of giving themselves a raise without some type of significant reason. That being, if we're going to go to work sessions during the week, then yes, I would say that would justify giving ourselves a raise. So if we're going to have meetings and then a work session also during the week or sometime during the month, then I say, yes, do a raise. So I'm going to be voting no on this ordinance, but don't take that as saying that the planning board members don't deserve a raise. It's just my own philosophical view.
Jean, do you have anything to say?
I just want to know if you're going to donate that money that you would have made to the town for streets and stuff.
I've been donating that money through other ways.
Leroy?
I was just thinking he should donate it to the chocolate that the.
Oh my gosh, did you see that bucket of candy over there?
Yeah. It goes to the 2 genes, I understand. I'm just being facetious, but. No,
Miss-
I know that there are a lot of things the council does that is not apparent to the public, and a lot of phone calls you take, and a lot of things, travel that you do that you're not compensated for.
And I should point out,
Yeah, and that's why I've always, since I've been treasurer, to go along with the raises. The town is making money, can afford it. It's not hurting the town at all on any projects. If it was, then we should not do it. Yeah.
and with Leroy's comment, I know that a lot of us do our own printing, put a lot of our own expenses in, and we don't charge the town back for that. I realize that.
Anything, Misty?
No, I would just echo their statements. And I want to put a plug in for, I know that we're not the only salary on this. I know that our staff is as well, and they work very hard.
Mhm.
And I feel like they're very deserving of it. We don't see a lot of the late night hours that our clerk and Darcy, is she file clerk? Is that what we're?
No, she does all sorts of stuff.
Yes, Darcy, our wonderful, she's wonderful as well, and she's here late at night. I drive down the street to go home, and they're here a lot. So I want to support this as well as give them a shout out of appreciation.
Now, Heath, you looked like you wanted to say something a minute ago.
Couple things.
Okay.
One question is, why are the minutes by ordinance and not by resolution?
I think the code said
Because I
ordinance.
think state law requires ordinance.
For elected officials, but,
Staff is resolution.
and my second point is too, is like I look at the ordinance.
Now, hold on.
Okay.
Misty gave you the microphone for a reason.
I looked at the ordinance and I can see, my other question is, generally, I see a municipality adopt a staff pay range for different offices.
Mhm.
Because I look at, if we're evaluating for what Crystal does, everything like that, her salary that is set in this ordinance may be perfect. What happens if Crystal can no longer be the recorder and the town clerk, and we hire someone with no experience, brand new, but under this ordinance, we have to pay them exactly what we're paying. And so some of it should be dependent, in my mind, on experience. And so usually they develop pay ranges, and then your administrator, who in a town this small is the mayor, can do annual reviews and give pay raises within that pay range.
And so then it doesn't have to be done by ordinance.
That does not.
Okay.
You've adopted the pay ranges.
Got it.
But I would even say what you're paying employees doesn't need to be adopted by ordinance. Elected officials.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, you could strike that. That's no, it's not, we're adding anything. We're just taking that out.
Isn't there a requirement though to set the salary, even if it's by range, by ordinance for statutory appointed officers? So that would be the
Well,
clerk,
that would,
the recorder.
For the recorder, I guess, and that's where we probably need to have the distinction. Again, though, I still think it is within, it's not improper to have a range for appointed positions that are required, like a town recorder.
Okay. So since I'm planning to put on the agenda for probably next month for us to work on revising the town employee, the personnel manual and start adopting a new manual, is that where we would just put this in this personnel manual? Okay. All right. Okay. So then I do want to say before we make the motion to amend this resolution, I just want to say for those who are will be looking at the minutes later or watching online, that before we when we came up with the salary that we had for the clerk, that we did look at the surrounding towns, And the salary that we are putting in line here for her is exactly in line with the surrounding towns. All right, motion? Yes, well, yeah, strike what you were talking about, yeah.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion that we adopt ordinance number.
Oh, it's on our,
It's on
it's
the agenda.
It's 2022-11.
11.
2022-11, with the striking of the line and the inside of the quarter town clerk as follows, as well as the box that indicates your salary.
I second.
Um,
Oh, what?
No, I just had a question for Heath on that before we go. Because you're striking just the salary for clerk and recorder?
And we're striking the line that says, and the salary shall be as follows, and the box below it.
Maybe the better one would be, instead of just delete the salary, that will be, recorder and town clerk will be set.
Pay scale will set.
The pay scale will be set, then we've done it by ordinance, the pay scale, then we've already done the ordinance to say the pay scale will be set in a personnel policy.
I like that. I like that, Paul.
Okay, I'll second the amendment to the motion. We made a motion to delete this, and you're amending the motion to
I'll
add
make
this
that as a
language.
motion to
Okay,
amend
all
it,
right.
and then we'll
Okay.
yeah, and then I can vote on that amendment.
Got it, okay. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion, I'll amend the motion that we amend the motion and keep the line recorder and town clerk and insert pay scale range will be set in the personnel policy.
And still strike the box.
Not the box, just the number, because recorder and town clerk will be.
So we're just going to leave the box after it with the dollar value as blank.
And then put in the pay scale, a range, however I said it, pay scale range will be set by personnel policy.
Okay, got
So
it.
in that box,
In
you
that
don't have
box,
the
we put-
number, but you have, it's going to be set in the personnel manual
Okay,
or personnel policies, or set pursuant to personnel policies, excuse me.
okay. I second that motion. All in favor? Or wait a minute, we're paying,
the
this
amendment.
is money, so we need to vote. What?
So we're voting on the amendment.
Yes,
Okay, aye.
Jean. Jean, aye. Leroy?
Aye.
Misty?
Aye.
Okay. All right. That was seconded
By
by
you.
me.
For the amendment.
Okay, we're moving on to the next item, discussion and
No, we now got to do the motion. We did an amendment to the motion.
All right, I thought that was the motion, I
No.
thought that was the whole motion.
No,
Okay.
Jean had the motion and
Okay, let's
Leroy
move on.
seconded it.
Make the motion, let's move
He's
on.
already made it.
Okay, let's vote on it.
No,
He made the motion, I seconded, you made an amendment, I seconded.
and we voted on the amendment. Now we're voting on the amended motion.
And he made, okay,
So, no.
Yes.
yes. I didn't think we were ready to vote yet. We hadn't had a second.
We did have a second.
That's what I thought I did. Now I was getting confused. Okay. So what was your vote, Paul?
No.
Yours was yes, mine is yes. Leroy?
Yes.
Misty?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, next item, discussion and possible approval of ordinance 2012, amending section 44.12 of Virgin Towns Municipal Code, allowing non-conforming lots abutting highway resort zone to be rezoned highway resort zone upon request. Any public comment on this ordinance, this proposed ordinance.
Not pertaining to this ordinance. Last planning and zoning meeting, we had a gentleman come up that asked to be moved forward in the order to get him in a timely manner. After this one, is there a chance to do that for item 4.1, new business?
Well, we still have a whole hour to go.
We've had a very slow go.
Well, I think these next two are going to go pretty fast. I
Okay,
think we'll get
great.
to you. I think we're going to get to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any comment, any public comment on non-conforming lots on highway resort zone? I'll take that as a no. So discussion among the town council. Any objection by anyone? If not, I'll take a motion to approve ordinance 2022-12.
I move that we approve ordinance number 2022-12, amending section 44.12 of Virgin Town Municipal Code.
All in favor? Oh, no, I think I'm going to do a roll call. Misty,
Yes.
Leroy,
Yes.
Jean, yes. Jean,
Yes.
Paul?
No.
Okay. All right. All right, moving on. Next item, discussion and possible approval of resolution 2022M, adopting a policy for replacement of luminaries and maintenance of existing streetlights. So this would be building on what we talked about during the work meeting. And if I came away from the work meeting with the correct understanding, it seemed to me that the understanding is that we could go forward with replacing the dark sky lighting in all of the town except, replacing our current lighting with dark sky lighting from Rocky Mountain Power in all of the town except for Desert Gardens. And we will obtain a survey of the people of Desert Gardens of what they want. And they can either pay for the removal of the lights, or if they ultimately decide to keep the lights, then we will have Rocky Mountain Power come out and replace those lights with dark sky lighting. Is that correct? Or did I make it sound confusing there?
No, that sounds like what we discussed.
Okay. So that is what that's what I took away as our solution to this problem. Is there any objection to you from any of you now that a little time has passed?
Maybe I missed it. What time frame are we looking at?
Oh, right away.
Like as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not talking waiting very long. I'd call them tomorrow and say, get us on the list.
We have 30 days in the ordinance. So it says repair to replace. Should we put repair to replace or a plan in place? Because
I'm sorry, where are you?
if you look at the very last part, it just kind of nails us where it says that they will be replaced and or repaired.
We already passed this resolution last month.
Yeah.
Yeah. We only exempted out 30 days for Desert Gardens.
But it says in here that we will repair them or replace them within 30 days.
But yes, which is what we
So
discussed.
do
was
we need,
adopt-
I'm just covering
Yeah,
our bases.
yeah.
Do we need to change that a little bit or just put that, or are we fine to accept it the way it is? It just seems like we're hit in a 30-day.
Yes, I am okay with that. There's one light down the street that I'm going to get replaced right away anyway, but I don't think that's going to cost us but maybe like $25.
So are we going to, so I'm not going to write the water, so are we going to meet once you have the information from Rocky Mountain on the, because it was just a discussion item tonight. I'm all for the luminaries that are the light sky, but
you recall, talked about the issues they had in Tocqueville and things, so they found that it was actually an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be something about that that we're going to vote on? Like eliminate or that we're going to have in there or the style that we have?
Well,
We just discussed it, we haven't really passed anything yet.
we can do that. But what I showed last month, the fixtures, those are the fixtures that Rocky Mountain Power will be using.
So we just get them in the process of going on it.
Yes. We can talk about whether or not it's going to be a 3 or a 4K. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, okay. We can do that. I guess I could go to Tocqueville and find out what theirs are. Right now, if they said they were too dim and bumped them up, what are they right now? Okay. All right, so we're just going to bump this to next month then and come back with an actual ordinance, lighting ordinance?
I'll make a motion that we table resolution 2022-M until the next scheduled council.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Then I have a couple questions. If we're going to go ahead and do a program for the whole town, we're going to probably need a budget amendment, correct, Leroy? To do that?
I'm sorry.
If we go ahead and approve a budget to upgrade the lighting to dark sky, we will need a budget amendment?
Right, we'll need a budget amendment, but we can approve that before the budget.
Right.
Yes.
So then my next question is what type of funds are we going to use? Can we use street impact fee funds to do this for a street since it's upgrading to dark sky lighting? Okay.
Unless that was a project identified in our.
Unfortunately, our capital improvements plan for streets we need to enact a new one.
Yes, yeah. So it'll just be general fund? Okay.
Yeah, the general fund.
See, I told you we'd move along. Okay, so now we're on to new business. Discussion, what? I thought we did.
We did.
Yeah, we just said all in favor. Yeah. Okay, new business. Number 1, discussion and possible approval of final plat for Zion's Edge subdivision from John Staples seeking short-term rental overlay located east of Rio de Sion. I wasn't going to read the whole plot number there, lot, parcel number. Discussion or it doesn't say accept public comment on here, but we should be accepting public comment if there is anyone in the public that wants to comment on it. Doesn't look like there is. So discussion. Do you need to bring up what we talked about earlier on this topic?
There has been some question whether or not how do we go about getting the process by which to get the STR development overlay zone applied to a development. And looking at the ordinance, it's pretty clear that that is a zone and it is, identifies it in the ordinance as that zone has to be process in which it is reviewed and approved is done the same way that any zone is. And so, you know, there's been a declaration of that is their intent, but merely making a declaration, I don't know if that applies. Under the ordinance, they have to put a note in their plat that it is going to be an STR zone. They also have to put language in their governing documents and their CCRs that use is allowed, and that they do choose to, if a homeowner chooses to use their property that way, that they have to use the same property management company. Those things have been done, I know, But I don't know that we've gone through the process of changing the zoning. Because it has, its existing underlying zoning doesn't change, but it's being given a secondary overlay zoning to it. So I think that it would be more than appropriate to approve, if the council is inclined to approve the final plat, but approving the final plat and giving it a STR development overlay zoning designation or approval would be premature. That being said, I know that the applicants were told otherwise, and have some expectations that that would be included this evening. So I don't know if there's any accommodation that the town wants to consider. I know that, on zone changes, you have to do 10 days advance public notice before the planning commission can have a public hearing and make a recommendation to the council. But there could be a couple of special meetings called, even the same day. But obviously, the council meeting would have to be after the planning commission, if that's something you're inclined to do. But my recommendation is that we can clearly approve the final plat tonight,
As rural residential only?
well, yeah, and you can apply for the STR zoning overlay after. I would only indicate to the applicant that it would be, I wouldn't be selling any lots until I've got conclusion on the STR overlay zoning, because if you sold 4 of those lots, then the parties that are making the zoning application has to be you and the 4 new owners. And it's much easier to do it when you own everything. And so I know that is a delay for them, because they felt like that through making the declaration on the plat, sending the town attorney, their CCR showing that language that was going to satisfy that. And frankly, I was looking at the plat itself. I had no idea, and I'm not involved with what applications have been filed, what have been done at the planning and zoning commission level before any of that stuff. So that's where we stand tonight is,
Okay, so looking at the code,
Maybe we should hear from the applicant.
okay. All right. I think I should have spoken first, but go ahead. We'll let you.
I'd love
Nope,
to
nope,
hear.
nope, go ahead.
Um,
Hear what you have to say.
I guess I'll have questions after comments are made. Jeff Staples. I'll have questions after comments are made, so maybe I'll do some musical chairs tonight. But in reiterating what Mr. Snow has offered, it's been very clear to us with several conversations and email conversations that we have done everything needed to do for this overlay. Also, the only other existing subdivision with this overlay did not do a zone change. And then I guess what would be a wonderful resolution, I'm just going to throw this out there, is, and backtracking a little bit, with the timelines that we have and obligations we have on financial obligations to close this property completely, and the interpretation both from council members and staff on us having done everything, if we cannot come to a great agreement tonight, it's going to have to be our legal counsel will get involved. And so my proposed resolution would be this. An approval, pending the vote, an approval tonight, not just for the final plat, but for the final plat with the STR overlay contingent upon doing whatever other application that we've been told doesn't exist within a special meeting held in 2 weeks. Otherwise, it puts us in a bad position that we will then defer to the town to help out on.
Okay, so here is what I was going to say a minute ago. So when you look at the code on how to do a short-term rental overlay, it talks about, of course, as you mentioned, the application. And then it says that the town shall not approve an STR overlay designation unless it finds the following, and then there are 8 things. And none of these, only of those, I'm sorry, there's 6. Of the 6 things, 1 has been done, but the other 5 have not. This has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with you at all. It's the town. But the town was supposed to find that, besides the fact that it had to have a zone change, that was supposed to have an application for a zone change, it says here that this is in item number 8 under section C, that the town shall not approve unless it finds the following. 1, that the proposed zoning designation and the development of dwelling units as STRs at this particular location is necessary or desirable to provide a service or facility which will contribute to the general well-being of the neighborhood and the community. And that hasn't been done. It says that a development-wide short-term rental use of dwelling units will not, under the circumstances of the particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of persons residing or working in the vicinity, or injurious to property or improvement in the vicinity. And then C, and that hasn't been done, that the proposed zoning designation, which hasn't been applied for, and development of dwelling units as STR units will comply with all other regulations and conditions. That I think has been taken care of. Here I said, this is what I said I know you've done, which was D, that said you've got this in your CC&Rs. You've done that. And that talks about then using 1 property management company. And then F is that the proposed zoning designation does not contradict with the town's general plan. And so my issue is that these four of these 6 findings have not actually been analyzed and addressed. And so I think that doing your proposal, this is my opinion, that everybody else on town council can chime in after me, but my opinion is that doing a review, including an STR overlay and making it conditional upon something we do afterwards, I would have a problem with. I don't like the proposal. I'll just say that. That's my opinion. And we'll see what everybody else thinks. Because it's oh, and I do want to say this, that yes, I know that other development was done the way it was done, but just because it was done wrong doesn't mean we need to continue to do wrong for any of the others in the future. It was not done following of the law, but that doesn't mean we should just throw our law out and not follow it for any future.
That's why I offered the contingency.
Yeah, I understand. Others?
Yeah. The ordinance is very clear that we have to provide notice and we have to provide a public hearing and a recommendation from the planning board. And since this is a zone change, it's also based on state law, which requires us to go through a procedure. So I don't think your contingency would work because it's prejudging what the recommendation is based on the public input. I don't think that would be allowed under state law. Heath can weigh in on that or not. But I think we have to go through the process first and get it here in the proper process, and then we'll make our decision based on the evidence that is presented to us in the recommendation of the planning board. When you were here for the preliminary plat process, I asked if you guys had made a decision exactly on the STR, and you said no, you had not. And that's fine. According to that process, you can do it later, but you still have to go through the process. And so you had an opportunity back then to do it 2 months ago. And between that hearing and now, you made a decision to do it, but we still have to go through the process and do the proper notice.
What would you
And go through
consider
the
your
public
certified
hearing.
mail going to adjacent landowners about our project showing our STR overlay? What would
It
you consider that?
still has to be, it still has to have a 10-day notice. It still has to go
That
through
was
the.
10-day notice.
It still has to go 10-day notice, and it still has to be published on the public notice website. It still has to go through a public hearing.
Was it not?
Well, excuse me, let me finish. Still has to go through a public hearing at the preliminary, at the planning board. The planning board did not notice it up for an STR overlay. So there was no notice to the public that they were doing an STR overlay at the planning board. Their agenda did not have any notice that it was going to do an STR overlay on the planning board agenda. They did discuss it, but there was no notice in the public at all that this was going to be an STR overlay.
There was prior to planning and zoning.
And finally, there was no notice that's published in accordance with state law and our ordinance. And finally, when the planning board made their recommendation, they did not issue any recommendation as to the STR. They just approved the final plat with conditions. There was no recommendation or wording that they made with respect to the STR overlay. So I think it's
On
deficient.
planning and zoning?
Or planning
You're
and zoning.
incorrect.
What's that?
You're incorrect.
No, I listened to it before I came in. There was no, when they made the motion, it did not say we're going to approve a zoning designation for an STR overlay.
It says it on the plat that they approved it.
But they did not make that specific
So they have to
approval.
read every damn word on there?
I'm not going to argue with you. I think it's insufficient. My comments to the commission is that if they want to do an STR overlay, then they need to process it correctly. And so they can proceed with the preliminary plat. And I'm supportive of the preliminary plat, but I still think we need to go through a separate process for the STR overlay before they can proceed.
Okay, I want to clarify one thing if you're saying the right word. You just said you were in favor of approving the preliminary
Or
plat.
The final plat without the STR
Okay,
overlay.
I want to make sure what
Correct,
you
Liz.
said.
Thank you.
Okay.
So my comment on this is something that gets, the town has dropped the ball, and that's not the applicant's fault. There were public hearings, and no one in this town is not aware that this was going to be a short-term rental subdivision once that was declared. At what point is intent, and this is a question for Keaton, at what point is intent taken, making them go back through the entire process seems to me more like a move to slow the process intentionally to punish the developer.
Well, I think it's as much for the protection of the developer, because if a property owner or someone, our ordinance allows for a challenge to occur to a land use decision. And so it's going through the proper process is as much a protection for the landowner, the developer, as it is for the city to do it. To say, yes, the intent and that it was very clear and known, I don't doubt that at all. I mean, first time I spoke with Jeff, he indicated that that was their intent to do an STR. I just wasn't aware of what the process had been up to that point in time. And so I think that we ought to go through the process. I think we ought to accommodate them, because it is as much in kind of the way we've handled it as a town and what they've been told, and there's some expectations that I think probably justly should not have been made or created with the developer. They felt like they were doing everything that they were supposed to do. Granted, they could have read the ordinance closely or had legal counsel interpret it too, but that ordinance isn't the clearest thing in the world either. So All I'm suggesting is that maybe if there's some way that we can accommodate and just expedite the process, but still go through the process. is what I'm saying.
I just have one more question to that. So some of the stuff the mayor pointed out and some of the stuff Paul pointed out, those are discussions that were had at the commission level, whether this is what we want for the town, blah, blah, blah. They went through all that. They compared it against the general plan. Do we have to go back through all that? Or do you just do this notice, public hearing, and move it forward? I mean, how much of this really hasn't been done?
State law requires that for any zone change, and we're not changing the zone, we're adding a overlay zone to the underlying zone. And any type of zone amendment like this requires a 10-day public notice, for a public hearing at the planning commission level and a recommendation from the planning commission. And then you guys can properly take action on it. That has not, to my understanding, occurred.
I will say that, I received the letter that you guys sent, the certified letter that said that announcing the subdivision. But I read it closely and so did several others in the neighborhood, and it just talked about a subdivision. It didn't say a word about short-term rental overlay.
Who sent that out?
It's the notice.
The town.
Yes, it was the town that mailed it out.
So, and maybe we.
There is no other notice. I've not received another notice of any sort.
The point is that if we sent it out, then we should have been aware of its content, and if we should have required, or put some additional notice language.
No. There was a letter saying we're applying for a subdivision, and you guys applied for a subdivision. But as Paul made clear at the preliminary plat, they specifically asked you if you were going to do short-term rentals, and the response was that you didn't know yet.
This was right before planning and zoning, because
This
I
was
met
on
with
town
Stuart
council meeting.
Ferber that day, and he said, look what showed up today. I've never seen certified mail come for something. It's regarding your subdivision. And it came from the town.
Okay.
So that we had 10 days before planning and zoning that we submitted everything showing short-term rentals.
I would have to see those papers. What short-term rental,
The overlay everything had to be submitted 10 days before even planning and zoning.
yeah, but what's the date you're talking about? That's what I mean, what date?
It's prior to the last planning and zoning.
Oh, in the one that was just 2 weeks ago today?
That is what was put out, yes.
I want to note, I think, Paul, this is another one that should go back to commission to be redone for a couple of reasons. In section C-3, it says that during the concept plan, a narrative saying that you want to do that. But then a little later on, or up above that, it says that this can be done simultaneously with the final plat. And then below that, it says it only applies to final plats that have been recorded. So at what point the town has to be made aware of this is pretty open. Right, but I mean, it's gray enough that we've said, this is when we think we should announce that there is a short-term rental overlay on this.
Concept plan is prior to preliminary plan. And when the developer is proposing a concept, they should be declaring that we intend to apply for the overlay zoning of STR, because that could affect the sizing of utilities, access, all sorts of parking, off-street parking, things like that. And so everyone needs to be looking at plans based on that concept. You can run your zone change application for the overlay zone concurrently with your final plat. That's what that second section says. And the other section talking about final plat says it has to be for an actual platted subdivision, but it has to be a new one. Those are some of the eligibility requirements, but it doesn't have to be recorded. You can apply for it after it's recorded. It says that you can apply for the rezone while you're doing the final plat approval. You can run it simultaneously. So I don't think it's as confusing as you might interpret it, but they've asked for it. They thought it was going to be part of the approval tonight, and some of it is, but I'm looking at, well, that 10-day notice that was sent out for the preliminary plat, it shows Zion's Edge development is designated as a short-term rental development.
I'd have to look at it. Let
on
me see.
Plateau.
Let me see what you're talking about. Oh, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the notice.
Yeah, the notice, and it has the plat attached to the notice that was sent.
What's the date on the plat? I think you're expecting people to be able to be sent the data.
It's not ideal, but it's, that letter just like, probably should okay, so the letter that went out to all the residents within 300 feet or whatever, says there's going to be a public hearing. Enclosed, you'll find the public hearing notice and a copy of the
Property
plat
plat,
map.
right.
And that property plat map, she said she put to me, it does say short-term rental.
And I'm saying you're expecting people who are not specialists to be able to read that, and understand that.
Well, and don't you have to have the 10-day notice on the public notice website to that effect?
That is for short-term rental?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I think there's an argument to make that notice was kind of like what Gene says. In a lot of ways, there was some compliance, in some ways, there was not perfect.
Yeah, and I have no,
And for the protection of everybody, Jeff, for you, John, for you guys, for everybody, for the town, just follow the process that's required with exactness. And that would, all that would be to have a 10-day published notice specifically saying that the purpose of the public hearing is to discuss the application. He needs to submit just a normal zone change application. We don't have a separate application form, just the normal zone amendment application form that everybody else uses if they want to change their zone. Pay the fee and have the public hearing, take input, get a recommendation from the planning commission, and then you guys take action on it.
What's the date of that letter?
August 31st.
Okay,
and so I have no problem with an expedited process.
Okay,
I just can't agree to the process that Jeff has said.
so,
That'll come before the process happen.
So this,
Yes,
and,
Well, not the plat,
not plat,
just the zone change.
just the zone change.
and the,
Zone change, adding an additional zoning layer to it, the overlay zone, STR.
Has to go to planning and zoning. Is that what you're saying?
and the pending
I
legis,
said the quickest that it could happen. would
And-
be if the council wanted to instruct the planning commission, hold a meeting 12 days from now, and you guys hold your meeting 2 hours after, or an hour after their meeting, they could have their meeting, have a public hearing, make a recommendation, and say that took them 45 minutes to an hour, and the council acted on a properly published, normal, just public meeting, you could do it the same night.
our regular planning commission's 14 days from today. So what are we,
Yeah.
okay, but what,
But then you'd have to sit and wait till another month till your council meeting, because then making a recommendation doesn't approve the rezone or the additional zoning, it's council's action.
oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So I'm just saying, okay, if you want to use their meeting that's already scheduled as the timing for it, put out public notice, but then can you guys have a meeting either immediately afterwards, the next day, whatever, as a way to accommodate kind of the.
Okay, okay, before I ask my next question, it appears to me that Bronwyn and Sean are both wanting to say something.
Okay, just briefly, from planning and zoning perspective, this issue of STR was addressed over and over again. We got quite a few letters, even though it was stated that no one knew about it. It was quite well known. In fact, it was.
We didn't say
quite
no
a few
one knew
people.
about it. We said it wasn't properly noticed.
So it was properly noticed for the public hearing. This was attached to that. I knew about it. Anybody who looked at that public hearing notice would have known it was there. The idea, I know Leroy helped form the whole STR ordinance when he was on there, and I'm pretty sure that the process was to do it alongside with that final plat. An expedited process would be awesome, but I kind of don't agree that it has to be separate, just because there's a few things. Plus, I'm glad you read the ordinance. We do that as well. We went through each one of those steps, and that's why we made our recommendations. So.
And what about okay, so now, yes.
So I am seeing all the holes in the process. And I can see the problems on both sides, but I just think it's important for context that, and honesty here, that the Planning and Zoning Committee did operate off the simultaneous process part of that. And we tried to do it carefully. So we thought we were doing the process as it went in the ordinance as a simultaneous.
I understand, yeah. So we still get back to my final question, which is the pending legislation.
I would need to evaluate that. I don't know. I mean, you indicated, I wasn't at any planning.
No, you weren't at the planning commission meeting.
But if there's been an ordinance that's been proposed, it would apply to any new application. I think the question for the applicant is pre or post? Yeah, I mean, that.
Pre or post what? Oh.
Only post. No, I think the question that I would have, and that I would have if I was the applicant's counsel, is when did they effectuate an application? When did they indicate whether the city put them through the process that was required? Was there submittal or a declaration made? There wasn't an application filled out. There was not an application fee paid. But if there was, the pending ordinance doctrine in Utah, Logan City versus Western Land Equities says that there's definitely been some nuances to that case since it came out 20 years ago. And cities can't run out and put an ordinance in place with knowledge of a pending application. It's kind of like the dueling ordinance pending application.
I agree, but that wasn't done that way.
I'm saying though, that there is an argument.
Oh, okay.
There's been a declaration by them at some point in time, and then we started to run a competing ordinance through the process and say you have to now apply or have to go under that ordinance. There's definitely an argument that can be made by the that the pending ordinance doctrine does not apply.
Sure, I can see that. However,
I need to look at the dates. I need to see when it was, the first draft of the ordinance was prepared, when it was submitted to the city, when it was put on the planning commission agenda. And then I need to look at what the applicant's subdivision plans, when they were filed, all those different things.
Right, I understand.
You want me to give you a formal legal opinion, but I'm not in a position to do that.
No, of course you're not. I haven't told you all the details.
I know that this is an unpopular thing in some circles. I get that, but I feel like if we are trying to put legislation through to put the cat back in the bag, that's sneaky. I don't think we should go that way. I do have a request though. I think we ought to, and this is for the council, I think that we should be looking at the two subdivisions that are here tonight with the same, whatever we decide to do, it needs to apply to both of them.
Which other one?
Zion, or which?
We got a preliminary plat next.
Yeah, I know, but I thought
is that
that was
preliminary?
But that's
Okay.
not.
They have time.
But
My mistake.
If they do decide, he's still on the fence about, I know the process, or
Oh, so he's still
Right.
on the fence about whether he's doing a short-term rental? Okay.
So, just so everyone knows, planning and zoning right now is working on fixing this. We're trying to redo the ordinance for the short-term rental and all that, so that we can not have this problem in February.
Okay. I think that we should try to get this on the planning and zoning and then have a special meeting right afterwards to address it. I also think it might be worth, I'm going to throw this out there and this ain't going to be popular, but I think we ought to waive fees because this is a slap in the face of people that did not expect this. This is the same exact thing that happened to me when I bought the 101. I was told one thing, I went through the process, purchased the land, and then was suddenly told, oh, you got to pay $1,500 and apply for this stuff that you didn't know you needed to have. And I went before the council and said, I think you need to waive the fees because you were disingenuous. I feel like we've been disingenuous in our, whether it was intentional or not, these developers were not told that this was what they were going to have to do by anybody, by the commission, by myself, by the council. Nobody stepped up until all of a sudden they come up for their final plat. That's just my opinion on it.
We do need to come to a solution because as a commission, it's our job to help. And right here, it seems like everybody has fumbled the ball.
Okay, I agree, it's a total mess. However,
We're supposed to be helping our residents as well as ourselves. So we need to make sure that we come to a resolution and do it as speedy as possible for the subdivision that's going in.
Also, the ambiguity, the state law says an ambiguity on the part of the municipality, we should be ruling in favor of the property owner. So keep that in mind.
Say that again, I didn't hear. I was talking to.
I just said
They were
ambiguity on the part of the municipalities understanding their own ordinances. We rule and be on the side of the property owner, or we should. Obviously, we need to go through this. I get it, but
Any application of our ordinances as applied to a specific situation and it's ambiguous or question about how we apply an ordinance, it should be construed in favor of free use of property rights and landowners. I mean, that's what our case law in Utah has indicated. And it just goes with normal principles of private property rights. But, so yeah, I mean, we have been interpreting this, or like, at least it's been told to them that all we needed to do was not fill out an application, and we don't have an application for it. And I'm saying, all it is just a normal zone change application, the form that we've used for any other zone, anybody else uses. It's what should have been put to them and told them that they had to go through this process. And it wasn't, and so they're here tonight thinking that they're getting both final plat and they're getting an STR overlay zone designation. And I'm saying, it's not just a designation, it's an actual zone of which you have to go through process prescribed by Utah law to get. And I think that we ought to kind of come and recognize our deficiencies and recognize that, you know, maybe they should have been more learned on our ordinances too, but nonetheless, they took our word for it, we're here and here now, so what can we do to try to help?
okay. We can move it along, but I have an absolute, complete disagreement with having a town council meeting right after a special planning and zoning commission meeting. I've always hated that. I think it's wrong because it implies that we already know how it's all going to go. I'm sorry. Yes, the next day would be preferable. I don't like it doing it right after.
In a box, if the planning commission needs to have a 3-hour public hearing, and they only set it for an hour because the council's gonna have a meeting right afterwards, I agree. Let the process happen how it's supposed to happen. Don't do it the same day, but do it the next day. or whatever.
I don't have any objection to doing it the next day, but I have a real objection doing it the same day.
What is that date?
Do we need to get our calendars out and pick the day after the?
Isn't it just
it's a
kind of,
Thursday.
aren't we going to just do it the day after the planning commission? That would be the 15th. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong month.
And Jeff, there is a.
No, planning commission's on the 12th.
So put it in the paper.
Oh, that's right, it got moved to the 13th.
She'd have to do it on Thursday to get it in for a 14-day period. So it works within 10-day period, I'm sorry, for a 10-day, it gives you
We'll have one
that.
tomorrow.
You just fill out the form. If they make
Yep.
a motion to waive the fees, fill out the form that's needed tomorrow.
You want to do it tomorrow?
The town can get the 10-day notice out for the planning commission's regularly scheduled meeting, and they're talking about.
I think it has to be tomorrow, correct?
A special meeting the day after.
It has
Right.
to be tomorrow.
And it turns out that at the last meeting, Planning Commission moved their October meeting from the 12th to the 13th. So their meeting's on the 13th, so we would have to, it's moved from a Wednesday to a Thursday.
That still doesn't change that you need to do
Would you,
You don't publish in the newspaper anymore? Yes, we do.
Do-
And it has to do it on Thursday night, Thursday to get in on Saturday.
are you,
Okay, still though, it has to be tomorrow.
So
Can you get 2 days?
I can get 10 days. Gene, you want to do Monday?
I was going to ask Keith what his calendar is.
You don't need to have me here in person if I can participate by Zoom. I could do it. They're meeting on the 5th, wait. excuse me.
Planning and zoning's on the 13th.
They're on the 13th. I could do it on Friday the 14th, or Monday the 17th.
Let's do it the 14th then.
I was going to say the 17th, but.
No. Let's,
There's a lot of people out of town on the 14th. I'm just saying.
For Mr. Staples.
So, and the
Does it
17th.
make a difference?
The 17th as well. Yeah, there, it's,
It moves over.
it's school fall break, so that's what they're talking about. It's gonna be a lot of people out of
A lot of
town. I
people
don't
out of
know,
town.
Gene, if you hunt.
No, but I take the remnants of what they bring down.
Right,
so.
so you're gonna be hopping. So the 14th, or the 14th
Is
is probably,
questionable.
if you did it in the day, if you did it during the day,
Via Zoom.
you could do it in the morning.
Electronic meetings.
Yeah, we could do it in the morning and get it
10
done.
a.m. Friday morning.
Jeff, will morning on the 14th, if that was the
If
date?
Zoom is possible, that'd be great. I do have a business trip the 14th to the 18th. But I do have a counterpart that can be here too.
doing this, is that okay with you?
Does that satisfy the,
Will that satisfy you?
Yeah, I definitely would like to be workable. I think I just gotta be honest here and let the cat out of the bag. We have done absolutely everything that we've been asked. Our legal counsel believes the same thing too, that we have retained. I do not want to cause future implications for the town, and so having to go through that process again, we'll play ball on that. The items that the mayor addressed that haven't been discovered have been discovered in our opinion and our council's opinion, both through public hearing with planning and zoning, also for paying for health and safety, paying for the traffic study, paying for the geotech services, making sure that the land is okay, that we're not too close to the river for septic, getting approved by the county's program, and then also with the archaeological service. So and also the other thing, are you okay with those timelines? We'll play ball with these timelines, but I just am gonna put this out there, and it is not my style, but I feel like there's been a little bit of nonsense through this process, is if there's some more curveballs that occur or funniness at all, the hammer that we throw down with our attorney will be ungodly, and the town will not want to afford it. So I just want to make that clear.
I'll make a motion. We may have to amend it a little bit, but I want to make a motion that we approve the final plat for Zion's Edge subdivision located at V 2148-A-1-B-1-A east of Rio de Zion, with any remaining obligations worked out with Heath. I know there were a couple things that needed to be done for the final plat, but I don't know. Okay, so everything's done. And then with that same motion, that the town notices tomorrow for a public hearing for the STR overlay zone to be taken up on the planning and zoning meeting on the 13th of October, that the council will convene on the 14th at a time to be determined, and that this is contingent upon the applicant filling out the application, and that the town will waive the fees.
Gene just had motion, I think there was some engineering changes, I don't know what status that is.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, it was revised, and I think the revised plat, at least that I saw, included the changes.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes, that was done. But with that, I think that caveat needs to be part of it.
The version that's been sitting here at Town Hall is the revised version.
And then with the notations related to the overlay.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm talking
We're
about.
approving it with that first plat note removed. However, I'm assuming that before they get ready, before they're recording the plat on this, they'll probably have the rezoning issue, the overlay zoning issue resolved. And if it's resolved with a grant, then it can just stay on there. They don't need to remove it.
Okay. Satisfied? Motion's made.
Second.
All right, we'll vote. Misty,
Yes.
Leroy,
I think we've done a real injustice to the Staples, and my heart goes out to them. They did everything that we asked them to do, and here we're throwing this hammer at them. I'd like to vote no on this and vote yes on completely honoring and giving them what they're asking for tonight. But I know that I'd probably be the only one that would do that. So, but I just want them to know that, and the public to know that I feel that we've done an injustice to them. And, but I'll go ahead and vote yes on this.
Jean,
This Gene or?
Eugene.
Yes.
Paul.
Aye.
Okay, I recuse. All right, so that's resolved. So next issue is discussion and possible approval of the preliminary plat for Zion's Landing from Justin Christensen. And I'm looking, in all the stuff that you copied, I didn't see it there. It is? Maybe it got paper clipped to something else. There's a big paper clip, but they both say Zion's Edge.
I know we already did the budget thing, but if we were going to give our money to anything, I'd like to start paying off these developers to quit naming stuff
Okay.
Zion's everything. Wouldn't that be nice? Everything's Zion.
You can cash in on the word Zion. You should use it.
There you go. I spent time down in Roswell, New Mexico. Yeah, those guys really capitalize on aliens.
I
They
was
have
looking at
alien
that. I
lights
saw
in
the folder, and I
town.
was
They
like,
have
why was
aliens all over
everywhere.
their
They're
Walmart. We're just doing the same thing.
Okay, we've got 6 minutes to do this, and the rest we'll have to be waiting for next month because we've got to do our closed meeting and then Heath has to go. So we've got 6 minutes to discuss this preliminary plat approval for Zion's Landing. So Jean, tell us about this.
Gene's the wrong guy to tell you about it.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I figured you'd been working with him.
No, no, I don't do anything with these subdivisions that the commission handles at all. I just attend if they have questions, but.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't know,
No
I didn't
worries.
realize that.
Chance Snow with Civil Science. I'm helping Justin with his subdivision here. It's just up Pocketville Road. I found out that that might be a cul-de-sac now, potentially. Okay. We would be the last, Justin owns the last property private. till
Yes,
this
yes,
comes.
right.
So
That's
this would be the last development on that road up that way. We're here just looking for you guys' approval to do a subdivision, I guess, basically, before we take rest of the process, go farther. And then before we do a final plat and have to make sure and know for sure if he needs to do a short-term rental on this one too and go from there.
I got some questions for you.
Yes, go ahead.
You guys made some changes in your common area, correct, from the previous owners on how they had their sewer and everything?
From the previous owners, we pretty much copied most of exactly what they had, except we're probably going to upgrade the sewer.
Okay.
Just better safe than sorry for any reason.
There's currently a road that runs through that property, correct? That runs, kind of bypasses the sharp, hard road and kind of cuts across to get to the Butlers and those other properties. Is that going to be?
There's a road up on top.
It's above you?
It kind of goes through. There should be a one with the contours on it somewhere. If you got that one. There you go. Yeah, it kind of runs. Sorry. There we go.
Where does it come off of Pocketville? Is it
It
where
comes
you're?
up right at the top right there, and it kind of goes right through the middle of it a little bit, and then over to this existing easement that the house is up there on the hill a little bit.
Are you guys going to have any road that carries through to that other road to the water tank, or is that blocked off?
We don't have any. It's private behind us, so the only thing that we could do is give them, like we're doing, we're stubbing a road to that property.
And that is the plan?
That is the plan.
Gene, the previous plat that we saw on this, you didn't have the road connected all the way through, did it?
Yeah.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember that.
I can't remember either.
Yeah,
It's been too
Justin
long.
wanted to say they've seen this before. Let's stick with what they've seen and not do anything.
I like that.
Well, it's beneficial for the property owners behind us that if they ever want to do something, they have a means of getting to they're not landlocked or have to go through the conservancy district or any other way. They do have somewhat of an easement on the south side here. That does go up quite a ways, but it's a dirt road and they got power poles there. So that's why there's no.
Where's the existing fence?
It's okay. Here? It's back, it's a little part, it's right there. Yeah. So there's a fence there and it kind of goes around.
So are you guys going to set out down here? Or are you gonna, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, the road will come up right to there. And what we can do is if they want, we're going to have to run water around that too for storm, from runoff. So that's kind of what we're at the process. Now, we just didn't want to get too far into it before we had an okay from the council that they're okay with us going forward on this.
And you'll be bringing your water lines and your sewer up to town standard, correct?
Yes, it will actually be a real sewer to a septic, big septic. So if anytime anything's developed future-wise, we can tie on to that sewer line.
Okay.
So
I know when we get to that point, that'll be one of my recommendations or requirements that you guys abandon your system when it fails?
Yo, no,
if
yeah,
sewer's
no,
available
yeah.
and all
We
that,
would,
so.
we would gladly hook on to any public sewer without having to maintain any kind of septic system.
Most people would, but.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I
They're a
got.
handful, I know they are, so,
Thanks.
yes. Any other questions?
Is this going to be short-term?
He's leaning that way, yes. I think that's his intent now that he's going forward. But like I say, with everything going on right now, he may just sell them all as single family. He may have a clause in there, that he may try to push for short-term rental and then just have a clause in CCRs that it's possible for a homeowner to do that in there pending the final plat approval and the zone change.
You listened to what went on here.
Yes, that's it. It was beneficial to me because we do a few out here, and it was a little confusing on the process.
We like to keep it that way. I'm
Well,
just joking.
I'm saying if I'd have known it was something that would have been brought up on preliminary, then I probably would have brought it up to Justin as well.
I mean, the idea being on something this small, I don't think so, but I mean, if it was gonna be a much bigger STR development, then maybe affect the size of the utility.
Well, and I kind of hinted that it wasn't more of a downtown deal. It's not
Yeah.
right off the highway. It's more of a secluded area.
But at
And we
least-
did have a traffic study done for this for your Pocketville Road. So you can look at that as well. So we're just looking for approval. I know what time's up, so
Yeah, on the traffic study, it was just for this area.
just Pocketville right there,
Just
yeah.
how many traffic is going to go on, not all of Park.
Not south of that, no. Just what would go through there.
And if we weren't going to do at least the discussion, we have about the upgraded cul-de-sac, my throws me in a tough spot because I would have recommended some type of pork chop that forced everything to make a right to go out towards Co-op Road. So I turn out a subdivision on Co-op Road, but if you're going to put a cul-de-sac up there and close it off, that doesn't make sense.
And it'd be beneficial if you do that, you could tack it right on to the end of this road, right on the end of the property there, because it is Conservancy District there. And that would still give you a fairly large buffer to Co-op Terrace as well. I just, it's something, if you want us to show it on there as a possibility too, we could show something like that on the plans, but it's kind of however you
Not
guys.
until it becomes reality.
Yeah.
Unrecorded clap.
Yeah, and I say, before we start the final plat and go through the process of the
Yeah.
short-term rentals.
Yeah, my concern is Pocketville needs some traffic calming in the forces. Everybody's gonna actually turn out and go down Pocketville Road. So. that's all-
It's my hat, I've been doing it for 30 years.
But it's all right if you have a traffic circle up there because then they can't come off.
They can't get on Co-op, yeah.
But if there's no call-up, no traffic circle, or no cul-de-sac, excuse me, up there, then I'd like to try to force traffic out of it. But we're at the stage here, so we got.
Well, I say
Yeah.
it would go through Conservancy
And
District.
so I'm all right. In fact, I actually liked your submittal. It was a pretty good submittal. I enjoyed reading it. It answered a lot of my questions. It was well done.
We do know there would be a lot of stormwater to handle, and that's one thing we like about this is that we will handle a lot of that runoff. It'll be better controlled as it goes down Pocketville Road through our storm drain stuff.
Was there any, I don't recall now.
There's a
Top of my-
damage.
Was there any conditions that the planning board?
I was not-
Not yet, not yet.
Not for preliminary stuff.
No, like I say, we're just making sure that everybody's aware this is what we're wanting to do, and if it's a go, then we can go ahead and push for the final and the zone change.
Also, when you do this, make sure when you get to digging up there, or considering getting further, pay attention to that. The tank overflow is right up above you, so.
Yeah, we got a little more digging, but he's not gonna do this one right stuff, the offsite. But yeah, this is our 10. The one road will be fairly steep, but that's just part of living on a hill, so.
Okay.
So have you already talked to Rocky Mountain Power about,
I did not know about what the
substation?
substation. I did not know about that.
But did you already talk to Rocky Mountain Power about getting power to subdivision?
Yes, they have a power
And they've already told you they have enough power for your subdivision?
That's what they
Okay,
told us.
okay.
And I'll double check with him when he gets that, so.
Just for public knowledge, that's a concern that until that substation gets in, there's a high possibility that some of these larger projects are going to get put on hold. They can't get the equipment from China for like 2 years. So we may have some diesel generators in town. It's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And it's not just us, it's all over Washington County and everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And I know that the owner's thinking about short-term rental in this project. I understand why, and I know he's looking at the current conditions. But
I would, if it would be, I'd recommend you apply for it.
my recommendation is the opposite. Is I think homes is what we need.
Yeah.
Single-family homes.
It would just be,
Especially in that area.
and I know it's just, my personal opinion, other than a civil opinion, is it increases the value if it has that option of a short-term rental. As an investor as well, that's what I would be looking at. 'Cause it will probably be a second home for a lot of people. Most of them here are in southern Utah. So, but it's up to him. I just do what he asks, so. But I can pass on anything he wants.
Yeah, well, it's just my.
I'll let him know. Yeah, I mean, I'll say yeah, so.
Don't do it till after.
I,
Don't do it till after his honeymoon though, so.
Yeah.
He called me today from Germany and I guess they're going to, I don't know where they're going to, him and his wife.
Okay, before we go on, I have to go back. Did we set a time for this thing that we're doing on the 14th?
To be determined.
Okay. Sorry, my mind was completely elsewhere. Okay.
You're great.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
If you want to make it, I don't.
okay. Go for it.
Am I making it? All right. I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed subdivision preliminary plat, Zion's Landing, located at V2139B Pocketville Road.
Second.
Well, wait a minute, I have a question.
No, it's discussion.
I am not going to get in the same situation with this guy and this subdivision that we just went through with the Staples. And we said that the concept plan was supposed to take place before preliminary plat review and plat approval. And here we are approving his preliminary plat, and we haven't done anything according to our code that has to do with short-term rental overlay. And he's saying that they might want to do that. So are we about to get ourselves in the same mess we're in right now?
Well, I think if you're gonna push him before you'll give him preliminary plat approval, I think that his engineer would probably tell you, yes, we're gonna do an STR, that'll leave it open to apply and move forward. Again, the only reasoning why you make declarations or require them at a conceptual or preliminary stage is so that when they are preparing the construction drawings for this, that you know that everything's adequately sized and all things are dealt with. Again, it's more important to the bigger development, because you might have to deal with some things like adding additional off-street parking or stuff like that, but this is pretty straightforward. But I guess if you want to say, make your declaration now or forever hold your peace.
No, it's not that. I don't want us to get down the road just like this and them claim, you didn't tell us, we didn't know. Okay. All right.
And as far as discussion goes, you know, that's part of the risk I think he's going to take from an engineering standpoint, because if you look at the ordinance with the STR overlay, one of the things you look at is there are sufficient off-street parking. And so as far as the condition goes, the planning and zoning could come in and recommend a condition that they increase the SR.
That's right.
Create more off-street parking, which means they got to go back and reduce.
Okay. Well, okay.
That's part of the process.
That's not what I'm referring to. So let's just say that since you, as the engineer, have been here, that you understand that if they want to do a short-term rental overlay, you're going to be asking for an overlay zone. And you're going to fill out an application for a zone.
Zone change application. Same
at the same time as submitting a final plat, he would be submitting his application for a zone change. I'm telling you, you can file an application for a zone change after the final plat.
I know. You and I talked about that earlier today, and I understand that as long as you said, they haven't built a house and they haven't sold a lot, that they could do it.
I would strongly recommend to the developer that he don't, that zoning needs to be in play, overlay zoning needs to be in place before they're selling.
But whether you do it at the final plat or before, just fill out an application for a zone, please. Thank you. And we can go through it the proper way. Okay. You're welcome. Oh, we haven't voted. Paul?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Jean? Aye. Leroy?
Aye.
Misty?
Aye.
Okay. All right, you're approved. All right, so meanwhile, the reason I was asking if we had set a time for the 14th is it's just too late to do the closed meeting. You've got to go. So would we be able to do the closed meeting on the 14th? What, tonight? Or at the 14th? What?
I'll stay here if you want to do it tonight.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because otherwise we can do it on the 14th. He was going to get up and leave.
I think we should do it tonight. I think we
Okay,
should.
do it
For his
tonight.
sake, yeah.
Okay, all right. Then I'll take a motion to
I'll make a
close,
motion.
okay?
I'll make a motion. We close a public meeting and open a closed meeting
I,
for the purpose of dealing with the appeal.
oh, yes, sorry, we need a
yeah.
table. Yes,
I
3 and
withdraw.
4 table.
When we table the next two items, I suggest that we table, we can see this for next meeting, regular meeting, and we table the Z or the L through Z for 2 meetings, because that's a lot of material to try to read through and process.
Okay.
And I just need to have.
Can I make
2 months to finish.
Can I make another suggestion to that? Let's just, instead of doing that, let's do it for the next meeting. We'll get as far as we can, then we'll table it. Because I know we're not going to get through it in one meeting too.
But the problem is I may not get through all the definitions by the next meeting.
I see what you're saying.
I'm saying that I want some extra time to do that, rather than do it in 30 days, because that's a lot of substantive material. And you guys are working on it for a long time, so I know you guys did the whole lot, but I want to make sure I understand it. And so I would make a motion that we table item
3 and 4.
4, 4?
4, 3, and 4, 4.
Yeah, the casita item to next regular meeting and table the zone code amendments L through Z until the November meeting.
I'll second.
No, you got it. Okay.
All right.
Now you can't say Jean seconds. She still
Yeah,
isn't
this is
going to know
like
who
who?
seconded, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so now.
Now make a motion to
Now
close
you
the
can make your
public
motion.
meeting and open the closed meeting to address the appeal of
Second.
John Ely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, okay.